Chapter 1030. In this flourished cloud sea region, in addition to the few overlord forces, half-step law manifestation realm was definitely a high position in other forces. They might even be a sect master. Even in the assassin organization, the half-step law manifestation realm assassin was definitely a gold medal assassin. There were even half-step law manifestation realm assassins who had assassinated law manifestation realm experts. In order to invite such an expert to personally take action, one could well imagine the huge price that they had to pay. An ordinary faction would not be able to afford it, let alone an assassin organization that dared to shed all pretense of cordiality with a colossus like the Guiyuan sect. This was not something that could be explained by simply paying a huge price. In fact, it could even be said that it was impossible to achieve. There was only one explanation for all of this. Someone was supporting them from behind. This person could only be an expert from the Vanishing Shadow Poisonous Crocodile Clan and Poisonous Flaming Dragon Clan. Yishuan confirmed it just now. After beheading the black-robed assassin, Yishuan conveniently took the longbow and put it into his pocket. Although he didn't know any bow techniques, but it didn't matter. He had the mysterious space, and he could automatically deduce the skill of the longbow without any problem. Yishuan landed and looked coldly at the Vanishing Shadow Poisonous Crocodile Clan and Poisonous Flaming Dragon Clan experts. He said coldly, "I didn't want to bother with you, but you have plotted against me again and again. If I don't teach you a lesson, you will think that I am a pushover." Although it had been 5 years, the resentment between the three parties had deepened. During Yishuan's absence, Bai Hanmo was hunted down many times. Although Yao Qian did not say anything, the Sunny Bamboo Chamber of Commerce must have suffered a lot of suppression because of him. Yishuan wasn't a broad-minded person. If he was a petty person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance, then he wouldn't deny that there was no need to be soft-hearted towards a person who had tried every possible means to put him to death. "Yishuan, what are you doing?" Crocodile Shadow shouted with a stern look. However, there was a trace of fear for Yishuan in his eyes. Unlike young Master Yan, he had fought with Yishuan before. He lost all his confidence in Yishuan's hands. In this battle, his confidence was almost worn down. Although he didn't realize it, he couldn't help but panic when he saw Yishuan slaughter a half-step Transcendence Realm expert and come to his side. "You're actually asking me what I'm doing? What a grand scheme to ambush a half-step Transcendence Realm powerhouse here. If my cultivation hadn't improved slightly in the past few years, wouldn't I have been killed by you guys?" Yishuan sneered and said. If his strength had remained the same as it had been 5 years ago, then perhaps he would have died under this surprise attack. There wouldn't have been any other outcome. "Do you have evidence?" Crocodile Shadow said angrily. "Evidence? Do you need it?" Yishuan showed a funny expression. Didn't they want to put Yi Xiangtian to death just because they suspected that Yi Xiangtian's death was related to him? What evidence? That was just the words of the weak. For the strong, these were just funny jokes. "You!" Crocodile Shadow was enraged by Yishuan, but he felt a little sad in his heart. It had always been the Vanishing Shadow Poisonous Crocodile Clan facing the questioning of others. Since when did they have to rely on the so-called evidence like a weakling? This was the Vanishing Shadow Poisonous Crocodile Clan's style of doing things in the past. Evidence? How much is a caddy? Can it be eaten? As long as there is suspicion, it is evidence. It is better to kill 10,000 innocent people than to let one go. "Evidence, do you need it?" Bai Hanmo said these words with a little excitement. "Domineering, too domineering. Brother Ye's words are too domineering." Yao Qian and others next to him also looked at Bai Hanmo helplessly. He got the wrong point. At this time, everyone's eyes were focused on Yishuan, waiting to see how he would deal with this matter. The power emanating from Yishuan's body was getting stronger and stronger, crushing the experts of the two clans. He was like a vicious beast in human skin, exuding the pressure of a vicious beast. Crocodile Shadow was the first one who couldn't withstand Yishuan's pressure. He turned around and left. He turned into a stream of light and fled into the sky. The other experts also couldn't help but turn around and leave. They knew very well that those assassins had been hired by the experts of their clans. Yi Shiwen had exposed them at this time. Moreover, he didn't have the slightest intention to let them off. So, how could they not leave? Where are you going? Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. He directly launched a chi-condensed giant hand in the air. Boom! Crocodile's shadow screamed. His body was slammed to the ground like a cannonball, smashing a large pit on the ground. His bones seemed to be smashed in an instant. He was killed on the spot at once. Immediately afterward, Yi Shiwen stared at Flame Young Master. At this time, Flame Young Master turned into a flame and was about to disappear from everyone's eyes, but a fiery saber aura chased him from behind. Boom! The saber aura slashed him in half on the spot. After these two leaders died tragically in Yi Shiwen's hands, how could the other experts escape, especially when Yi Shiwen's murderous intent was aroused? Boom! 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 These poisonous Flaming Dragon Clan and Vanishing Shadow Poisonous Crocodile Clan experts screamed and burst into a cloud of blood mist. Everyone was dumbfounded, looking at the scene in front of them. They had seen people who were straightforward and ruthless. However, they had never seen someone like Yi Shiwen who was straightforward and ruthless. Not only was he ruthless, but he was also lawless. If these people were just ordinary individual cultivators, no one would have any opinion on the death of ordinary individual cultivators. With Yi Shiwen's current status and strength, killing some individual cultivators was nothing. However, these were the elites among the elites of the younger generation of the two clans. Yi Shiwen slaughtered all of them. Many people felt that their minds were a little overwhelmed. Is this the rhythm of piercing the sky? They just suspected that Yi Shiwen killed Yi Xiangtian. They pursued him until now because he killed the poisonous young master and Crown Prince Crocodile. He was still the mortal enemy of the two clans. Now Yi Shiwen killed all the experts of the younger generation of the two clans. What kind of sin would it be? They couldn't imagine the scene of the two clans' rage after learning this news. According to this situation, Yi Shiwen could no longer stand in the flourished Cloud Sea region in the future. The two clans in rage would never let him go. Even Ge Yuan sect could not protect him. This was no longer a trivial matter. It was a fundamental matter of breaking the inheritance. There was no place for Yi Shiwen to stand in the flourished Cloud Sea region despite the vastness of the flourished Cloud Sea region. Looking at Yi Shiwen's leisurely look, it seemed that he didn't put it in his eyes at all. Is he really not afraid? Or the ignorant are fearless? The scene was silent. Even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Everyone even held their breath. They were afraid that their breathing would disturb the demon in front of them. Yi Shiwen would snap out of his trance and focus on them. Crazy, crazy, crazy. This kid is really crazy. Pei Xingqian was dumbfounded. Looking at the scene in front of him, some things should not be put on the table. If it were in the blood world, it would not be a big deal even if Yi Shiwen killed all of them. Even if the two clans were furious, Ge Yuan sect could protect him. But now, in front of everyone, Yi Shiwen killed all the elites of the two clans in one fell swoop. This was crazy. A real man should do things like this. Jian Wushuang's eyes flickered as he said such words. In his opinion, as long as he had the sword in his hand, the world was mine. Any overlord was nothing to him. The other human experts were also dumbfounded. Although they hated these sea race experts who had been tyrannical on ordinary days, but they were still scared when they saw that all of them had been beheaded. Not to mention those sea race experts, they were also scared. Yi Shiwen was the kind of person who would cripple that Sanmia boy because he had insulted the human race. If he went crazy and killed all of them, then who would they cry to? Yi Shiwen was absolutely capable of doing such a thing. It was evident from the fact that he had beheaded the experts of the two clans. So cool, haha! Well done! At this time, only Bai Hanmo was still laughing in a carefree manner. How could Yi Shiwen not know what everyone was thinking at this time? After killing all of them, no matter how big the flourished Cloud Sea region was, there would be no place for him to stand. However, they probably didn't expect that Yi Shiwen didn't want to stay at all. When the Blood Realm trial was over, he would return to the ancient Baron's continent. If it weren't for the pursuit of the North Mountain clan chief, he wouldn't have come to the flourished Cloud Sea region at all. Later, because he was too weak, it was too dangerous to cross the Endless Sea region, so he delayed. Now, he had the ability comparable to a law manifestation realm expert. After he completed the Blood Realm trial, his strength would only be stronger. As long as he was careful, crossing the Endless Sea region would not be a problem at all. North Mountain Ling! It's time for you to pay your debts. As soon as Yishuan closed his eyes, he saw Xingyanmei's appearance when she died. That kind of powerlessness was unforgettable to him. Rumble! There was a sudden rumbling sound in the sky. A huge crack was torn from the sky, as if it was torn by someone in the air. A blood-colored energy swept out. Yishuan only felt that this was an extremely pure energy. It made his tyrant body cultivation, which was difficult to improve, actually improved faintly. Damn you, Yishuan, you actually dared to kill the elites of my clan! Die for this old man! A loud shout came from afar, followed by an extremely terrifying coercion that crushed down on them. Chapter 1031. Damn you, Yishuan, you actually dared to kill the elites of my clan! Die for this old man! A loud shout came from afar, followed by an extremely terrifying coercion that crushed down on them. Yishuan's expression suddenly changed. Damn it! Not good! Have the old fogies of the two clans found out? Yishuan knew that the important disciples of these great forces most likely had some kind of life token. Even if they were thousands of miles away, as long as the fire of life was extinguished, they would immediately know. Yishuan had killed all these young masters. It could be said that he had pierced through the sky. Moreover, there must be someone among these sea clans who had informed the two clans so quickly. Boom! A gasified big hand came down from the sky. Its target was Yishuan. It wanted to crush him on the spot. Yishuan didn't think. He suddenly stepped on the ground and his figure turned into a ball of light, dodging this fatal blow. So fast! Pei Xingqian said with his eyes wide open. Compared to a few years ago, Pei Xingqian's speed was even faster. Pei Xingqian's eyes couldn't even catch his figure. But the attack didn't stop. More than a dozen angry roars came. More than a dozen big hands came down from the sky, trying to grab Yishuan to death. They didn't show any mercy. Boom! 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 Yishuan's figure kept flashing in midair. He kept dodging, but the opponent's attack was getting more and more rapid. As he got closer to the island, the strength of the attack also got closer. Boom! Yishuan finally couldn't dodge and was hit by the big hand on the spot. The power of a law manifestation realm master's angry attack was imaginable. Yishuan was almost smashed on the spot. If it wasn't for his tyrant body that was too tyrannical, he would have been smashed in half on the spot. Puff! Yishuan spat out a mouthful of blood. There were traces of golden threads in the blood. It was divinity. The divinity that was plundered by Yishuan was now integrated into his body bit by bit. Although it wasn't a perfect integration, it gave his body some special abilities of a god's descendant. Another big hand came down from the sky. Yishuan immediately gritted his teeth and rushed into the blood world. Boom! The place where he had just been standing had already been crushed into powder by a large hand. Yishuan mobilized the Phoenix regeneration technique to heal his injuries. The roars of the law manifestation realm masters came from behind him, but they could not rush into the blood world. They could only roar from a world away. He rushed into the blood world and felt that he was surrounded by a blood-red energy. The injuries on his body were slowly recovering. This blood-red energy had extraordinary effects. It was a completely different feeling from spirit chi. Spirit chi still needed to be transformed and absorbed by oneself, but this blood chi could be directly absorbed. It was as if it had already been transformed, and now all he needed to do was to absorb it. However, he didn't have the time to rest. The bloodstains on his body quickly attracted the attention of a unique creature in the blood world. It was a blood fiend. It was said that the blood beasts in the blood world were creatures that were born due to the influence of the blood chi. They occupied a dominant position in the blood world. Even the geniuses of the younger generation could not challenge the blood beasts that occupied a dominant position in the blood world. This was a blood vulture. It was very vicious and had already reached the transcendent realm 9th level. Not long after Yishuan appeared, he immediately attracted its attention. It immediately rushed over like a bloody light. It opened its beak and spat out a bloody light, shrouding Yishuan's body. A bloody light instantly swept out from Yishuan's body, directly brushing the blood vulture into it. Boom! The blood vulture exploded on the spot, turning into a cloud of blood mist. Tianyuan mirror absorbed it. Some of the blood qi replenished Yishuan's body, and his injuries immediately stabilized. Although the previous heavy injuries did not kill him in one fell swoop, he was still severely injured. The attack of a law manifestation realm master was enough to be fatal. He was seriously injured even if he did not die. After killing this blood vulture, Yishuan knew that he could not delay like this. Otherwise, it might attract more blood beasts. Although Yishuan had never entered the blood world, the flourished Cloud Sea region had participated in the blood world trial many times. Although they suffered heavy losses many times, it was undeniable that the flourished Cloud Sea region's overlords had a lot of information about the blood world trial. Yishuan had read all these information before coming here. Although he had never been to the blood world, he knew some of the situation in the blood world like the back of his hand. The blood beasts in the blood world were more brutal and bloodthirsty than the beasts outside. A little blood might attract a large number of blood beasts to besiege. Thinking of this, Yishuan did not hesitate immediately. He found a mountain range and recuperated in seclusion. This recuperation took a full 10 days. Only then did Yishuan recuperate everything in his body to the peak state. This was under the condition that he had the Phoenix regeneration technique to protect his body. If it was an ordinary person, even if he did not die, he would not be able to achieve anything in this blood world trial. He would probably spend all his time recuperating. This was not an ordinary person, but a law manifestation realm master. After 10 days, Yishuan had almost recovered, but he did not choose to leave the mountain range immediately. Instead, he began to condense the blood stone. This was a type of crystal unique to the blood world. It wasn't something that could be dug out from the ground. Instead, it was something that had to be condensed by humans. In this blood world, it was shrouded in boundless blood qi all year round. It was unknown what the blood qi was composed of. It was only known that it was more precious than spiritual energy. For ordinary people, even if they only cultivated in the blood world without any training, their progress would be much greater than outside. This blood stone was condensed from these blood qi. Masters above the transcendent realm could condense these blood qi into a blood-colored crystal stone. This was the so-called blood stone. Because these blood stones were condensed directly from blood qi, they could also be absorbed directly. It was just like a spirit stone, but the effect was countless times stronger than a spirit stone. At the same time, these blood stones were also the hard currency in the blood world. If one wanted to buy anything in the blood world, they would need these blood stones. Compared to blood stones, the hard currency in the outside world, spiritual crystals were not worth mentioning at all. The cultivators who could enter this place were all outstanding members of the younger generation of their respective factions. How could they not have some wealth on them? However, compared to the bloodstones that could directly increase one's cultivation, their wealth was insignificant. For these young geniuses, as long as they wanted to obtain things like spirit crystals, there would always be a way. However, the bloodstone was different. After leaving the blood world, there was no way to condense bloodstones anymore, so it was particularly precious. It also became the hard currency in the entire blood world. Yishuan spread his palm and channeled qi into his dantian. His palm was like a turbine, producing a strong suction force. Countless blood qi around was absorbed, and then condensed into a blood-colored crystal stone. This was the hard currency in the blood world, the blood stone. The method of condensing was somewhat similar to spirit crystals. In fact, It could even be said to have the same wonderful effect through different means. The only difference was that the blood chi in the blood world was condensed, while the spiritual chi in the outside world was condensed. After condensing a blood stone, Yishuan began to condense more blood stones. However, no matter how focused he was, he could only condense about 500 blood stones. After condensing for 3 days, he hurriedly gave up condensing more blood stones. At this rate, he would only be condensing blood stones, and everything else would be wasted. On a vast blood-colored plain, a figure quickly flew over it. Not far away, many blood fiends sensed this movement, and wanted to come over. However, by the time they arrived, the figure had already disappeared. "If the direction is correct, it should be this direction," the figure slowly muttered. This person was none other than Yishuan. Although the blood world was vast, after countless years of exploration, all major forces had a map in their hands. The more massive a force was, the more territory it could explore in the blood world. Of course, the wider the scope, and the more detailed it was. Although the flourished cloud sea region could only be regarded as a small sea region, after so many years of exploration, the map of the blood world was also very broad. Yishuan was about to rush over to meet up with Pei Xingqian and the others. He had agreed that they would meet up in the blood world's feng shui city if they were to be separated. There were many such cities in the blood world. These cities had been established by the ancestors of the blood world for many years. A large number of experts would be stationed in these cities whenever the blood world competition was held. The flourished cloud sea region did not have the strength to build a city independently, so it built Plentiful Peace City with others. Another sea region, Plentiful Peace Sea region, was in charge of this Plentiful Peace City. This was also a small sea region, but it was much more tyrannical than the flourished cloud sea region. In addition to Plentiful Peace Sea region, many sea experts also set up their activity centers in the blood world in Plentiful Peace City. With Plentiful Peace City as the center, they would expand and search. If they came in smoothly, then they would definitely appear in Plentiful Peace City because the blood world was too dangerous. The deeper they went, the greater the danger. Even the top heavens pride masters of the Super Sea region dared not set foot in the deepest part. In the blood world, there were many dangerous blood beasts. That was why countless cities had to be built for them to rest and recuperate. Over the years, the flourished cloud sea region had also expanded its activity range bit by bit according to the original map. Chapter 1032. There was nothing wrong with being cautious. In the blood world, there were many blood fiends that had existed for a long time. Once these blood fiends went berserk, no matter how talented they would die tragically. Recklessly barging into an unexplored place could only lead to death. Even if it was a place that had been explored on the map, after hundreds of years, there might be more powerful blood fiends in it, not to mention those unexplored places. Therefore, in addition to the general topography that was useful, many of the revelations on those maps were not very accurate. They needed to be explored again. However, for Yishuan, this was already valuable information. If there were no Gu Yuan sect, he might not even have this information. This Plentiful Peace City was naturally the base camp of the flourished Cloud Sea region. In the absence of a way to build an independent city, cooperation with other sea regions had become a helpless thing. Not to mention, even among the small sea regions, the strength of the flourished Cloud Sea region was relatively weak. It was not tyrannical. It could not be compared with the Plentiful Peace Sea region, let alone the Taifeng Sea region, which was almost a medium-sized sea region. He flew for almost an hour or so, and the outline of Plentiful Peace City finally appeared in front of him. Since only the elite disciples of various sea regions came in, the number of people was not too many. The scale of this city could only be regarded as a small city. However, although it was small, it had all the essentials. All kinds of arrays had been reinforced many times. The height of the city walls was more than 100 feet high to resist the invasion of the countless blood fiends in this blood world. Sure enough, in this small city, there was a lot of people coming and going, and it was packed with people. Why should the people of the flourished cloud sea region pay twice as much as the people of other sea regions? Why do the humans have to pay half more? An angry voice came from the city gate. Yi Shiwen frowned when he heard it. At this time, his figure had already flown to the city gate. He saw 4 big men standing on the city gate, firmly guarding the entire gate. The person in the lead was Pang Tiangon, whom Yi Shiwen had seen before. In front of them, several young experts of the flourished cloud sea region were glaring at them. Yi Shiwen had seen these people before. They were all young human experts on the top 100 list. They were definitely high-spirited in the flourished cloud sea region, but at this time, they were unusually sullen. Facing the rebuke of these young experts, Pang Tiangon just sneered and said, "No one is forcing you. It's fine if you don't hand it over. As long as you don't stay in this Typhoon City, you can go wherever you want." You! These young experts were so angry that their faces turned red. In this blood world, there were countless blood beasts. Without the protection of the city, the chances of them encountering danger would be greatly increased. In the face of the overbearing Pang Tiangon, many experts from the sea region looked as if they were watching a good show. In any case, they were not added to the list. Moreover, in the blood world, their relationship would only be that of competitors. What's wrong with having fewer competitors? Don't be complacent, Pang Tiangon. Have you forgotten about your crushing defeat in our flourished cloud sea region last time? It's not like we don't have anyone who can deal with you. A young human expert said indignantly. You mean that Yi Shiwen? Ask him to come out if he has the guts. I will crush his head. At the mention of Yi Shiwen, Pang Tiangon's face suddenly changed, and then he said with a hideous smile, "Even if it's him, this city belongs to our Typhoon Sea region now. Even if he is a dragon, he has to coil up. Even if he is a tiger, he has to lie down. Otherwise he will die. I'd like to see how I die." A cold sneer came from the crowd. A figure emerged from the crowd. Yi Shiwen! It's Yi Shiwen! Those young experts from the flourished cloud sea region shouted in surprise when they saw the person who came. It's you, kid! Pang Tiangon saw the person who came, and a cold killing intent flashed in his eyes. He looked at Yi Shiwen with eyes full of murderous intent. His left arm was still empty. It was the result of being blown up by Yi Shiwen's punch back then. There's a way to heaven, but you don't take it, and you barge into hell. I heard that you have been killed by a law manifestation expert, but I didn't expect to see you here, Pang Tiangon said coldly. Yi Shiwen didn't care about Pang Tiangon at all. He went straight to the side of those young human experts and asked, "What the hell is going on? Isn't this Feng Shui City? How did it become Typhoon City? If he did not go the wrong way, this should be Feng Shui City." In addition, he saw the experts from the flourished cloud sea region. He immediately confirmed that he did not go the wrong way. Since he did not go the wrong way, why did he change the name of the city? Stupid. Now this city belongs to our Typhoon Sea region. We are the masters here. What's so strange about changing it to Typhoon Sea region? Pang Tiangon said on the side. Yi Shiwen understood in his heart. In the blood realm, all worldly constraints were fleeting clouds. The only law was the law of the jungle. Whoever had the bigger fist had the right to speak, and the people would listen to their words. The ownership of these cities had already changed many times. Once a sea domain rose up, it would definitely fight for the ownership of these cities. After all, it was not as simple as a place to repair. Just the amount of bloodstones collected by the cities every day would add up to an astronomical amount of wealth. The weakest was a transcendent realm 8th level warrior. It could be said that all the elites were here. But now, there were only a few people, especially Pei Xingchen and others. They couldn't all be dead, right? Pang Tiangon saw that Yi Shiwen didn't intend to pay attention to him at all, and he suddenly became furious. He said coldly, "Last time in the flourished cloud sea region, I couldn't make a move. Now you are walking into a trap and seeking your own death?" Pang Tiangon was still brooding about losing an arm. In front of the entire flourished cloud sea region's experts, he was beaten by Yi Shiwen to the point of losing his temper. It was utterly humiliating. Capture him for me. This kid is the Flourish Cloud Sea region's #1 among the younger generation. If we kill him, the entire Flourish Cloud Sea region will be leaderless. Pang Tiangon yelled. 4 or 5 macho men appeared on the city tower. All of them were Transcendent Realm 9th level experts. They instantly rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Humph! Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. A cold light flickered in his eyes. A flame instantly rose in his hand. Countless flames instantly condensed into a long flame saber. Swish! A blade light flashed and streaked across the vast sky. An expert of the Taifeng Sea region who had pounced the fastest got chopped into 2 halves on the spot. He didn't even have the time to scream when he got chopped into 2 halves by Yi Shiwen. Pang Tiangon's pupils shrank suddenly. Yi Shiwen was more terrifying than before. He seemed to see the Yi Shiwen who crippled his arm with a punch. No, he seemed to be even more terrifying than that time. But at this time, he suddenly remembered that this was not the Flourished Cloud Sea region. In Taifeng City, even if he was a dragon, he would be slaughtered. Chapter 1033. Transcendent Realm 9th level might be able to act like a tyrant in the major sea regions, but here, it seemed so weak. Among these people, Yi Shiwen's realm was the lowest. He was only at Transcendent Realm's 7th level, but the combat prowess he unleashed was terrifying. Everyone held their breaths and focused their attention as they looked at the terrifying battle prowess that the newcomer had displayed. More importantly, he was rebelling against the Taifeng Sea region's rule. Since defeating the Feng Shui Sea region's experts, the Taifeng Sea region had become the master of this Taifeng city. It was not that no one resisted their rule, but they were all brutally suppressed without exception. Some people's heads were still hanging on the city wall, spreading like wildfire. Who the hell is this person? Why is he so powerful? Originally, everyone thought that he was just a newcomer in the Flourished Cloud Sea region. After all, the Flourished Cloud Sea region could only be regarded as the bottom among many sea regions. It was not surprising for the younger generation to have a Transcendent Realm 7th level expert. The larger the sea region, the higher its strength. In the past, the Flourished Cloud Sea region had a Transcendent Realm 9th level expert. There were even Transcendent Realm 6th level and Transcendent Realm 7th level experts. Although the Flourished Cloud Sea region's strength seemed to have improved a lot this time, it did not matter much if there was one more Transcendent Realm 7th level expert. However, Yi Shiwen just beheaded a Transcendent Realm 9th level expert. It seemed to tell them why a Transcendent Realm 7th level expert suddenly emerged among this group of Transcendent Realm 8th level peak experts. He was not an ordinary person. At this time, the human clan experts of the Flourished Cloud Sea region, who were previously depressed due to being suppressed, were full of pride. That is the top expert of our Flourished Cloud Sea region's younger generation. Pang Tiangon's arm was blown up by his punch. The top expert of the younger generation. Hiss! At this time, everyone took a breath of cold air. It would be fine if it was just an ordinary Transcendent Realm 9th level warrior. However, this was obviously just a Transcendent Realm 7th level warrior. A Transcendent Realm 7th level warrior suppressed everyone and reached the pinnacle of the Flourished Cloud Sea region. Even if it was just a small sea region, it was enough to amaze people. Isn't the Flourished Cloud Sea region's top expert Sea Dragon young master? Asked someone curiously. That's old news from a few years ago, said the experts of the human race with a slightly proud look on their faces. After all, they were experts of their sea area, weren't they? The human clan will charge half? Pang Tiangon, I think you've forgotten the pain after the scar healed. Yi Shiwen coldly snorted and said. Pang Tiangon's complexion turned ugly. He seemed to have recalled the time when he had been defeated by Yi Shiwen in one move. His complexion turned even uglier. Damn Yi Shiwen, this is not the Flourished Cloud Sea region. Do you think you can still act like a tyrant? Flourished Sea region's level of the Flourished Cloud Sea region. Realm. Realm region sea region sea region. At this time, the Flourished Cloud Sea region's human clan experts began to feel a little nervous. In this Blood Realm trial, the Flourished Cloud Sea region had hundreds of people. The Typhon Sea region's experts would be more than this number. Most of them were Transcendent Realm 9th level experts. If all of them were provoked at this time, it would be truly horrifying. Brother Yi, be careful. He is summoning his companions. If it doesn't work, we should retreat quickly, shouted a Flourished Cloud Sea region's human clan expert quickly. It's okay. Let them shout. It saves me the trouble of finding them one by one. Yishuan sneered and crushed a Typhon Sea region's Transcendent Realm 9th level expert's saber light. These people had just entered the Transcendent Realm 9th level. Even the Pang Tiangon trio from 5 years ago was much weaker. How could they pose any threat to Yishuan? Swish! The fiery long saber in Yishuan's hand was unleashed instantly. The fiery long saber slashed across the vast sky, and the air instantly exploded. Several Transcendent Realm 9th level experts had no time to dodge and were slashed in half on the spot. All of this happened in just a few breaths. These Transcendent Realm 9th level experts were like paper tigers in front of Yishuan. He could easily behead a group of them. The scene was silent. At this time, the warriors of the major sea regions finally understood why the person in front of them could suppress the crowd and dominate the Flourished Cloud Sea region with Transcendent Realm 7th level cultivation. Such strength was outstanding even in the Typhon Sea region. Pang Tiangon looked in Yishuan's direction. His whole body trembled unconsciously. His back was suddenly soaked with cold sweat. The evil star in front of him was more than twice as terrifying as he was 5 years ago. Although he was confident that he had grown, it was nothing compared to this evil star. Pang Tiangon wanted to tear Yishuan into pieces, but even so, he knew very well that he was not Yishuan's opponent. When he was about to turn around and leave, a continuous roar suddenly came from the city. Who dares to be presumptuous in my Typhon city? How dare you be presumptuous in my Typhon city? You're courting death. At this time, dozens of figures jumped out of Typhon City. Each of them had a restrained and tyrannical aura. All of them were terrifying figures at Transcendent Realm 9th level peak. Typhon Sea region was worthy of being a behemoth that could step into a medium-sized sea region. With this strength alone, it surpassed the Flourished Cloud Sea region. There was not even a Transcendent Realm 8th level expert among the experts who came to the Blood Realm trial this time. It was completely above the Flourished Cloud Sea region. The two people in the lead were also Yishuan's old acquaintances. They were San Miao Tongzi and Yan Shuran. Behind them, dozens of terrifying figures followed at the same time. Several of them were not inferior to the two of them. They were not inferior to Pei Xingchen and the others. Even if they did not step into the half-step law manifestation realm, they were only one step away. With such strength as a foundation, it was no wonder that Typhon Sea region could replace and defeat a small city like the Feng Shui Sea region. It's you? Yan Shuran looked at Yishuan with a complicated expression on her face. 5 years had passed. However, 5 years was nothing more than a snap of the fingers for their lifespan of hundreds or thousands of years. Perhaps, it was merely a short period of time for closed-door training. Yishuan had easily defeated her. And he had left an indelible impression in her heart. She had thought that she might encounter Yishuan here. However, she hadn't expected that she wouldn't encounter Yishuan for the past 10 days. On the contrary, he had appeared. And he had wreaked havoc in the Typhon Sea area as soon as he had appeared. What's wrong, Yan Shuran? Do you know him? Asked an ugly guy behind Yan Shuran. He is that Yishuan, said Yan Shuran with cold eyes. He is the guy who made you suffer a big loss? I don't think he is much. He is just Transcendent Realm 7th level. TSK, when did your strength deteriorate to this level? That ugly youth of the sea race looked at Yishuan with a strange smile, as if he had seen a delicious prey. Obviously, the Typhon Sea region was not united. There were still various contradictions. Reckless fool. A guy from the small Flourished Cloud Sea region dares to make trouble in our Typhon City. He must be tired of living. Another young man opened his mouth to speak. However, he was the complete opposite of the ugly young man from the sea race. He was handsome to the point of being a little bewitching. Boundary, back when I was massacring the human race in the sea region, I killed at least 800 of these ants. Hearing this, many human clan experts' faces suddenly turned ugly. Although they were not Typhon Sea region warriors, they still felt uncomfortable when they heard this. After all, they were also compatriots. A cold light flashed in Yishiwen's eyes. Although it was just a flash, his murderous intent was triggered. Perhaps on the ancient Baron's continent, many clans thought that the human clan was weak and could be bullied, but that was definitely not Yishiwen. Whether it was the earth in his previous life or the true martial domain in this life, the human clan was at the top of the food chain. Yishiwen's thoughts were completely different from these humans on the Baron's continent. It's ridiculous. Yishiwen shook his head and laughed. Kid, what are you laughing at? The ugly youth suddenly asked. He thought that Yishiwen was ridiculing his appearance. Because his appearance was too ugly, so he was extremely sensitive to any comments about his appearance. I'm laughing at you for not knowing that you are about to die, said Yishiwen, shaking his head. All of you deserve to die. Courting death. That ugly young man was instantly enraged. In an instant, a terrifying aura swept out, towering into the sky. Behind him, an incomparably terrifying aura suddenly condensed. It was as if in an instant, countless martial arts wills were displayed. His terrifying aura firmly suppressed everyone present. Whether it was the Transcendent Realm 8th level or the Transcendent Realm 9th level experts, everyone was suppressed. He alone could slaughter everyone present. Everyone was shivering under his aura. Although this ugly young man was not handsome, he unexpectedly had a tyrannical fighting strength. Don't underestimate this kid. He is by no means ordinary, said Yan Shuran. Stop nagging. Do you think I'm a loser like you guys? Transcendent Realm 7th level dares to clamor in front of me. You're courting death, said the ugly young man disdainfully. Pang Tiangon and the other two's faces suddenly sank. Pang Tiangon sneered. Who told you to look down on this kid? You'll regret it later. Boom! The ugly young man made his move. Chapter 1034. Yishiwen's entire arm suddenly stretched out, turning into a huge God's will phantasm. It stomped down in an instant, intending to crush the youth in the air. This huge God's will was condensed from Yishiwen's chi. It was pure and horrifying. Yishiwen had the illusion of collapsing the world with a casual stomp. Every pore in his body was spewing sword aura. Countless sword auras converged on top of his head, directly bursting out a terrifying sword light. It condensed into a huge sword and slashed out instantly. Bury the heavens! With Yishiwen's shout, this huge sword seemed to have turned into a long river, cutting the vast sky and burying the world. The long sword was irresistible. The huge foot of the huge God's will phantasm was directly cut, turning into spiritual energy all over the sky. Whether it was saber Dao or sword Dao, there was no difference in Yishiwen's hands. Yishiwen cultivated martial Dao, using martial Dao to control thousands of ways. What kind of swordsmanship is this? How is it so powerful? The ugly youth suddenly turned pale with fright. His body retreated again and again. His God's will phantasm was slashed by Yishiwen's sword in the air. He had no power to fight back. It's time to end it! Yishiwen took a step forward, and directly rushed in front of that ugly youth. A group of flames ignited in his hand, and transformed into a long blade. Then, he suddenly chopped down. Stop! Many experts in the Typhon Sea region yelled. How could they allow Yishiwen to kill their companion under their noses? Although their relationship might not be too good, they must stand on the same side at this time. Boom! 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 Hundreds of terrifying attacks arrived in front of Yishiwen in an instant. This group of Transcendent Realm 9th level peak experts joined forces. The power was unimaginable. Hee hee! With a devilish laugh, a demon shadow leaped out of Yishiwen's body, turning into a peerless demon. Demon aura swept between the world, rearranging the world. It was Yemo. Yemo snorted coldly and stretched out his demonic claws. In an instant, countless demonic imprints were grabbed out. The world seemed to have fallen into a demonic mirror, and no other laws could be seen. When this set of demonic arts was displayed, it was truly earth-shattering. Even with Yemo's many years of strength and foundation, in terms of understanding and application of demonic arts, he couldn't even catch up to 1% of Yemo's. As soon as he attacked, he wanted to turn this world into a demonic realm that was filled with the demonic Tao. All of the attacks that blasted over were grabbed by him and crushed in the air. Although there was no physical body, with the help of Tianyuan Mirror's power, it had reached a terrifying level. These Transcendent Realm 9th level experts were nothing in Yemo's eyes. On the contrary, in Yemo's eyes, these young Sea Clan experts had become food to replenish his consumption. And Yi Shiwen directly slashed down with his saber without any distractions. Ah! The ugly young man suddenly screamed and was slashed into a blood mist on the spot. Then, he was directly swept away by a blood light. Although this ugly young man was vulnerable in front of Yi Shiwen, in terms of strength, he belonged to the top of the Transcendent Realm 9th level. Moreover, he was at the peak of his life. There was an abnormal amount of qi and blood in his body, which could fully replenish Tianyuan Mirror's consumption. It could even help Tianyuan Mirror break through to the human level peak in one fell swoop. The experts of various clans were dumbfounded at once, especially those warriors from other sea regions. They were even more frightened when they saw Yi Shiwen's invincible prowess, and easily beheading the ugly young man on the spot. Tai Feng Sea region easily defeated Feng Shui Sea region and gained control of this city. They became the hegemon of this city. Anyone who wanted to live in this city had to submit to them. No one had ever dared to slaughter their members like this. Not only that, but the most important thing was that Tai Feng Sea region's strength was indeed far above other sea regions. Even if they wanted to, they did not have the strength to do so. If they wanted to make a move on them, the final result would only be death. But Yi Shiwen did it in front of them. Moreover, he beheaded one of their Transcendent Realm 9th level peak geniuses in front of many young experts of Tai Feng Sea region. This was far beyond their imagination. Abnormal. This is too abnormal. A Transcendent Realm 7th level warrior actually went against the flow to subdue a Transcendent Realm 9th level Heaven's Pride. It's unheard of! Someone exclaimed. Is the Flourished Cloud Sea region so abnormal this time? Young Master Sea Dragon is already amazing. I didn't expect there to be such a person lurking. The experts of the Tai Feng Sea region were dumbfounded when they saw that Yi Shiwen had easily resolved their attacks. It was probably only the Three Wonders boy and Yin Shuran. Peng Tiangan and the other two weren't surprised by this result. After all, they had suffered a big loss under Yi Shiwen's hands. It could even be said that they had been easily defeated. However, they were also secretly amazed in their hearts. Yi Shiwen is getting more and more abnormal, especially compared to 5 years ago. Who is it? At this time, a loud shout came out of the city. As soon as those Tai Feng Sea region experts heard this voice, they immediately felt relieved. The panic brought by Yi Shiwen's terrifying combat power disappeared at once. It's a half-step law manifestation realm expert, someone said while trembling. Although half-step law manifestation realm was only half-step law manifestation realm, it was already close to the law manifestation realm. It could already suppress these ordinary transcendent realm warriors. Edge Cloud! This name suddenly popped up in Yi Shiwen's mind. Yi Shiwen learned this name from young Master Sea Dragon. The experts dispatched by Tai Feng Sea region this time were all Transcendent Realm 9th level experts. Among them, there was even a top Transcendent Realm 9th level expert like Yin Shuran. Among these people, Edge Cloud had always been suppressing everyone, just like young Master Sea Dragon in everyone's eyes. Then, this expert who suddenly appeared was most likely Edge Cloud. With a half-step law manifestation realm expert in charge, it was no wonder that Tai Feng Sea region could defeat Feng Shui Sea region and occupy this city. A figure appeared in front of Yishuan as fast as lightning, and a terrifying sense of crisis leaped up in an instant. A long spear appeared behind Yishuan, and like an electric drill, it directly pierced through the vast sky and blasted towards the back of Yishuan's head. If Yishuan was hit, even if he was a tyrant body, his head would explode on the spot like a watermelon. It was impossible to survive. Yishuan's reaction speed was faster. In just an instant, he had already recovered. He threw out a sword aura and blasted it at this long spear. Yishuan naturally knew that this attack was extremely hasty. He was afraid that it could not withstand the full blow of this half-step law manifestation realm expert, but it could only delay it a little. Even so, he had already achieved his goal by delaying it a little. Sure enough, the sword aura was penetrated by the long spear almost in an instant. The long spear only shook slightly and directly blasted toward Yishuan. However, such a short period of time was enough for Yishuan. Boom! The long spear blasted the air, piercing the vast sky and directly blasted into a golden flash. It allowed Yishuan to escape. Yishuan finally had time to look at the silhouette after getting away from the spear tip. He saw that it was a young man in his 20s. He was dressed in a magnificent robe, but his forehead was completely covered with scales, indicating that his bloodline was different from that of the human race. Huh! The young man just let out a cry of surprise. He seemed to be slightly curious and a little puzzled that Yishuan could avoid his attack. Initially, he thought that one spear could solve the problem, but he didn't expect Yishuan to dodge it. This made the corner of his mouth a little more playful. Are you Bien Yun? Yishuan stared at the young man in front of him and asked. I am Bien Rang. Bien Yun is my elder brother. The young man just smiled mischievously. He looked at Yishuan as if he was looking at a dead man. In his heart, perhaps Yishuan could not pose any threat to him at all, which was why he was so relaxed. It was already commendable for a Transcendent Realm's 7th level warrior to escape his attack. You are not Bien Yun? Yishuan frowned slightly. This young man was not the Typhon Sea region's top warrior. Bien Yun was just his younger brother, Bien Rang. Just Bien Rang alone was already a half-step law manifestation realm expert, and Bien Yun must be even more impressive. Who are you? How dare you be presumptuous in my Typhon city? Bien Rang asked slightly curiously. A Transcendent Realm's 7th level warrior could escape his attack. Although it was not enough for him to take it seriously, it had already aroused his curiosity. Flourished Cloud Sea region, Yishuan, Yishuan said sonorously. You are Yishuan? I have heard of you. Pang Tiangon and the other good-for-nothings were defeated by you? Bien Rang continued to speak with a calm and amorous look. On the side, Sanmu Boy and Pang Tiangon's faces suddenly became abnormally ugly. Anger flashed on their faces. Bien Rang's words directly turned them into good-for-nothings. How could they, who had always been arrogant, accept it? Whether they were good-for-nothings or not, they knew best. It was not that they were good-for-nothings, but Yishuan was too terrifying. Soon, you will be like them soon. Yishuan grinned, revealing 2 rows of white teeth. His expression was slightly disdainful, as if mocking Bien Rang's arrogance and conceit. Bien Rang's face suddenly changed, and he yelled, Presumptuous! Originally, I only planned to kill you. Now I want you to die without a burial place. Chapter 1035. Bien Rang just said that they were a bunch of trash. Now Yishuan said that he would be the same as them. Wasn't he mocking him? No, he was simply mocking him as a piece of trash. Humph! Bien Rang snorted coldly, and his figure flew out like lightning. With a loud shout, the long spear in his hand went straight to Yishuan's face. This attack was ruthless, and he had no intention of holding back at all. The speed was so fast that many people only saw it in an instant. They saw that Bien Rang had already rushed in front of Yishuan. The long spear spun crazily like an electric drill, bringing with it an extremely sharp chi. It went straight out as fast as lightning. Yishuan didn't seem to be able to react at all. He could only watch helplessly as the spear pounced towards him. Everyone below suddenly exclaimed, especially those human experts. They became even more nervous. They were afraid that Yi Shiwen would be beheaded on the spot. No matter what, Yi Shiwen was also an expert of their human race. Bian Rang's speed is so fast. He is so strong! Someone exclaimed. Yeah, I never heard that Bian Rang actually has such strong strength before. It's all because of his brother. Because of his brother, Bian Yun, he was able to stand out from the crowd and become a half-step law phase early-stage expert. Now that Bian Yun is out, he is in charge of guarding this place. Isn't he acting like a tyrant? Seeing that Yi Shiwen was almost unresponsive, Bian Rang sneered. Overestimating yourself. You're courting death. His hand sank, and the long spear went straight to Yi Shiwen's face with an even more fierce and unparalleled power, wanting to directly penetrate Yi Shiwen's head. Although Bian Rang was arrogant, in terms of strength, he was still the real deal. Although he had just stepped into the half-step law phase realm, in fact, he was far superior to the assassin in black who was half-step law phase early stage that Yi Shiwen encountered previously. Speaking of which, although they were both half-step law phase early stage experts, the assassin in black was obviously far less talented than Bian Rang. He was also better at assassination, so he was naturally far inferior to Bian Rang in a head-on fight. This spear attack was powerful enough to pierce through the heavens and earth. The spear tip spat out spear light that tore through the sky. Everywhere it passed, the air between the heavens and earth began to collapse. A sharp light suddenly flashed in Yi Shiwen's eyes and he began to move. Suddenly, a long and slender sword appeared in his hand. It was the magic sword of earth-level quality that he had seized from the hands of many assassins that day. It was very amazing. He took a step forward and swung his sword in an instant. A white stream of light shot out as if it was going to tear the sky apart. Countless sword auras were released in an instant. It was as if he had become an omnipotent swordsman at that moment. Boom! The sword chi and the spear chi collided in the air, directly blasting out circles of terrifying air waves, sweeping in all directions. All the air was blasted apart, and the space was distorted by these two terrifying destructive forces. Bian Rang's pupils suddenly contracted fiercely. There were many reasons for Yi Shiwen's escape just a moment ago. But now this collision was a real collision, but Yi Shiwen did not fall into a disadvantageous position. This had far exceeded his imagination. But at this time, it was not up to him to think too much, because just now, Yi Shiwen's attack had already arrived. He no longer passively took a beating, but directly rushed up. His whole body's real elemental energy burst out from his body, instantly forming a huge shock wave. He didn't know how many times faster his stature was. He took a step forward, creating a golden wave, and instantly arrived in front of Yi Shiwen. The long sword instantly pierced out, and it was unknown how many sword lights were split in the sky, like a wave, overwhelming and murderous. That vast sword intent seemed to want to annihilate all living beings in the world, piercing through them. Burial sword! Damn it! Bian Rang shouted in a low voice. Yi Shiwen had taken the initiative to attack. He felt that he had lost all his face. So, he suddenly shouted again and again. The long spear in his hand pierced through the sky like a poisonous dragon. It had an astonishing momentum, and it swept out endless lingqi. It was like a terrifying hurricane, and it welcomed the swordlights that had filled the sky. Rumble. There seemed to be no other sound in the entire world at once, leaving only the continuous sound of explosions. Countless explosions in the sky blasted out circles of ripples into space. Although Bian Rang was arrogant, his strength was absolutely solid. The long spear in his hand crossing the sky blocked all the sword lights. The smoke and dust had yet to disperse, and Yi Shiwen's next attack had already arrived. His offensive was simply like a continuous tide, and it simply didn't stop. He stepped on the golden tide, and his figure constantly flickered in midair. He directly tore apart the shockwave of the explosion that swept over. In an instant, he rushed in front of Bian Rang, and the long sword was like a venomous snake, directly piercing towards Bien Rang's chest. Bien Rang was shocked and angry. He immediately retracted his long spear, and countless spiritual energy was absorbed. His body retreated again and again, but the long spear in his hand was constantly accumulating power. At that moment, the long spear suddenly pierced the sky, and finally went back to the sword. Boom! Another wave of terrifying explosions swept through the area. Boom! 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 The two sides exchanged hundreds of moves in an instant. The battle was earth-shattering. Both sides had fought all the way to the depths of the sky. Although they were separated by hundreds of miles, everyone present was an outstanding transcendent realm expert. With their eyesight, even if they were separated by hundreds of miles, they could still see it clearly. Seeing the battle between the two sides, they were also shocked. Whether it was the Typhoon Sea region or the Flourished Cloud Sea region's human experts, they were all shocked. Originally, those people in the Typhoon Sea region didn't put Yishiwen in their eyes at all. They only regarded him as a slightly more powerful Transcendent Realm's 7th level warrior. Even if the ugly young man was easily slaughtered by Yishiwen, they didn't really put him in their eyes. But when they really fought with Bien Rang, they found that they still underestimated Yishiwen. This strength was simply heaven-defying. Transcendent Realm's 7th level could go against the flow and conquer the Law Manifestation Realm initial expert. Although Bien Rang had not entered the half-step Law Manifestation Realm initial for too long and was still in the consolidation stage, it was enough to see Yishiwen's horrifying strength. Those human experts were also afraid that Yishiwen would accidentally kill them. Yishiwen's strength had given them an opportunity. With Yishiwen's leadership, as long as they were careful, even if they had to leave the city, they would be able to survive. They might even be able to build their own city. Originally, the Feng Shui Sea region only had a half-step Law Manifestation Realm initial expert, and he could command the entire Feng Shui city. It was conceivable that in this area, the half-step Law Manifestation expert could summon the wind and rain. They could have anything they wanted. Although Yishiwen was not a half-step Law Manifestation expert, with his terrifying combat power, no one dared to look down on him. At this time, the realm was not so important at all. The kid from the Flourished Cloud Sea region might look good now, but how can he be Bien Rang's opponent? Just a battle of attrition can kill him. The handsome Sea Clan youth looked at Yishiwen's figure in the sky and said viciously. Most people around nodded in agreement. Even many neutral sea region experts thought so. Even those human experts in the Flourished Cloud Sea region, although they did not say it on the surface, they thought so in private. After all, although Yishiwen had the combat power of a half-step Law Manifestation expert, he was only a Transcendent Realm's 7th level kid. Naturally, the chi in his body could not be compared with Bien Rang. This was based on the Transcendent Realm's 7th level's chi being used to fight against a half-step Law Manifestation expert. Even if he was a Superman, it was impossible to sustain like this forever. However, they didn't know the ins and outs of Yishiwen. After integrating with the Star Beast's bloodline, his entire person was like a Star Beast in human skin. It was simply impossible to rely on fighting to exhaust him to death. However, no one knew this at all because no one could force him to such a point. Bien Rang found that no matter how much strength he exerted, Yishiwen on the opposite side was like a bottomless pit. There was no sign of exhaustion at all. No matter how much strength he exerted, Yishiwen could withstand it steadily. I've already seen through your abilities. If that's all you've got, then I'll defeat you, Yishiwen shouted coldly. The long sword in his hand burst out with a terrifying sword light, directly tearing the sky. It was majestic like a long river of sword light. Bastard, who are you looking down on? At this time, Bien Rang was no longer as calm as he was at the beginning. He was a little exasperated that he could not defeat Yishiwen after a long time. The long spear in his hand instantly pierced the vast sky. The spear light pierced the vast sky, instantly penetrating Yishiwen. Burial sword! Burial sword! Burial sword! Yishiwen waved 3 sword lights in the sky. For a time, Heaven and earth mourned together as if the whole world was about to be destroyed. It was a kind of terrifying fluctuation. These three sword lights condensed together in the sky under Yi Shiwen's control, condensing into a terrifying light sword. Heaven, earth, and man. It almost represented everything in the world, and this sword was about to be buried. It was conceivable how terrifying this sword was. This set of burial sword technique in Yi Shiwen's hands had already reached the point where it could be used at will. The combination of the three swords shocked the world, as if it could penetrate the whole world. The world changed color. The clear sky just now was suddenly covered with dark clouds. This was also the cry of the heavens, immersed in the realm of destruction created by Yi Shiwen's sword intent. Before the sword slashed out, Bian Rang felt an astonishing pressure bombarding down on him. Chapter 1036. What a powerful force! How can his swordsmanship cultivation be so powerful? Oh my God, am I mistaken? I just feel that the world is weeping under this sword. Isn't Yi Shiwen a saber user? I have never seen him use a sword. How can he be so powerful with a sword? At this time, a human clan expert from the flourished Cloud Sea region looked at Yi Shiwen in the sky, who was like the reincarnation of the sword god. In their impression, Yi Shiwen should be a saber user. How could he be the hero of swordsmanship at this time? No, I have seen him use fist technique. It is also unparalleled. It is not inferior to his sword technique, someone said. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Generally speaking, no matter if it was sword principle, saber principle, or fist principle, if any of them could be cultivated to the extreme, it would be incomparably powerful. But at the same time, because every principle was broad and profound, no one could be proficient in several martial principles at the same time, because it would only lead to being proficient in all kinds of martial principles. But each of Yi Shiwen's skills was enough to dominate all experts in the same realm. This was the most terrifying thing. They didn't know that Yi Shiwen had a mysterious space, so it didn't matter what he specialized in. As long as he had enough lingqi, his cultivation wouldn't stop, and he wouldn't be restricted by anything. This was the biggest reason why he could reach the peak of martial arts. Before this sword stabbed out, he felt the boundless coercion crushing down. If it was a timid person, he would be scared to death by this coercion before he could even make a move. This sword intention swept out, containing the meaning of destruction. The world was eternal, but the eternal also had to be destroyed. Humans not only represented the human clan, but also all the creatures in the world. The heavens, the earth, and all living beings would be annihilated under this sword attack. One could well imagine how sad this sword attack's sword intention was. Yi Shiwen knew about this move, but he had never used it before, and that was living with the heavens and earth. Each sword was incomparably sharp and full of grief and indignation. Now, this sword intention blasted into Bian Rang's mind. One could imagine how much pressure Bian Rang was under now. Before his spear light could even get close to the shining sword of light in the air, it was shattered by the surrounding sword qi. He could only watch as the sword of light became more and more powerful, more and more terrifying. He was almost about to kneel under this pressure. His whole body erupted with spiritual essence to resist the pressure of this sword intent. His pride absolutely did not allow him to kneel like this. He was a noble half-step law manifestation expert, but Yi Shiwen was nothing. He was just a transcendent realm's 7th-level warrior. If he knelt, regardless of the outcome of the battle, he would be nailed to the pillar of shame. It would become a stain in his life that could not be washed away day and night. He's just a transcendent realm. How can he be so powerful? Bian Rang's eyes were bloodshot. The meridians in his body surged as he struggled to resist. I'm not willing to give up. I just stepped into the half-step transcendence realm. How can I be killed here? He let out a roar. The long roar turned into a series of sound swords that blasted towards Yi Shiwen. Although it was just a simple sound sword, if one looked closely, one would find that these sound swords were condensed from extremely pure spiritual essence. There were also dozens and hundreds of laws wrapped on it. He wrapped the principles that he had condensed. The sound sword was simply irresistible. It broke through the protection of Yishuan's sword aura all the way, and went straight towards Yishuan's face in an instant. He was now at his wits' end. This method was extremely powerful, but it could only be used as a trump card. After all, everyone condensed a limited number of laws. It could even be said that the strength of a warrior depended on the quantity and quality of the laws condensed. The dozens of sound swords he condensed seemed inconspicuous. However, if caught off guard, even an expert of the same level might suffer a great loss under his hands. At the same time, if these sound swords were destroyed, then his vitality would be greatly damaged. After the battle ended, he might not even be able to maintain his half-step transcendence realm cultivation. However, what else could he do now? If he didn't fight with his life on the line, he might really die under Yishuan's sword. At this moment, he was afraid. He was truly afraid. At this moment, he finally understood that in this world, only tyrannical strength could rule the world. His identity might seem to allow him to act like a tyrant on ordinary days, but when he encountered a powerhouse who didn't care about his identity was like a piece of toilet paper. No one cared about him at all. Boom! Just as the sound swords were about to hit Yishuan's face, Yishuan finally moved. The huge lightsaber above his head suddenly shot out under his command. The sound swords were instantly destroyed by this lightsaber and turned into nothingness. Even the laws entwined on it were annihilated into smoke in an instant, as if they didn't exist at all. The lightsaber directly blasted towards Bian Rang with irresistible force. Although it didn't seem very fast, it carried a terrifying power, especially when Bian Rang didn't move at all. It wasn't that he didn't move, but that he had already felt that he was locked by the lightsaber. He couldn't move at all. He had always dealt with others like this. This was the first time he was completely locked by someone. Boom! An earth-shattering collision and explosion instantly spread out from the point of collision. The city wall, which had been reinforced countless times over the years, actually had a huge crack in this terrifying collision. The blood clouds in the sky were also instantly shredded into pieces by the shockwave. However, they heard a scream coming from the center of the explosion. Then, everyone saw a figure carrying Bian Rang out. It was Yishuan. Bian Rang was originally majestic. However, Yishuan grabbed him by the neck like an eagle grabbing a chick. Bian Rang walked out of the encirclement. Although he didn't die, he was already gasping for air. His clothes were already tattered. His whole body was held in Yishuan's hand like a dead dog. Save me, save me. When my elder brother comes back, he will definitely give you countless benefits. Bian Rang screamed endlessly. His whole body was restrained by Yishuan, and he couldn't move at all. Defeated? Bian Rang was defeated just like that. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them in a daze, almost fainting from fright. This was too incredible. Even the human clan experts from the flourished Cloud Sea region couldn't believe the scene in front of them. Impossible. He is just Transcendent Realm 7th level. It's already incredible that he can defeat Transcendent Realm 9th level. How can a half-step law manifestation realm not be his opponent? Such a thought emerged in everyone's mind. They looked at Yishuan as if they were looking at a monster. No, even a monster was not so terrifying. Perhaps this scene should happen, but it should be the other way around. Yishuan, who was in the Transcendent Realm, was being carried by Bian Rang like a dead dog. This should be the case. It shouldn't be the other way around. This doesn't make sense. Anyone who saw this scene would have such a feeling. This completely subverted their previous understanding and broke the myth that the half-step law manifestation realm expert was invincible. For them, they didn't think that the half-step law manifestation realm expert was so great. So many people present were elites and geniuses of various clans. Many of them could enter the half-step law manifestation realm, or even the law manifestation realm in the future. It was nothing to kill a half-step law manifestation realm expert, but they had to know that Yong Yang was a half-step law manifestation realm expert. They never thought of fighting against the Transcendent Realm's 7th level expert, or even killing a half-step law manifestation realm expert. Insane. To them, the scene before them was insane. They couldn't believe that this was the truth. Yi Shiwen, don't mess around. You know, this is not your flourished Cloud Sea region. When our Bian Yun returns, it will be your death. Bian Yun is much stronger than Bian Rang. At this time, Yan Shuren spoke and broke the silence. Yes, if you annoy my elder brother you will die. It's impossible for you to survive, said Bian Rang quickly. He originally resented having such a radiant elder brother who overshadowed all his glory. However, at this time, under the will to survive, he had to flatter his elder brother. My elder brother will be back soon. If you hurt me now, my elder brother will not let you go. At this time, everyone had just recovered from the fact that Yi Shiwen easily defeated Bian Rang. Indeed, the Taifeng Sea region had not collapsed yet. Even if Bian Rang fell, there was still Bian Yun. Compared to Bian Rang, Bian Yun was the real expert. Bian Rang was only able to become a half-step law manifestation expert because of Bian Yun. If you let go of Bian Rang now, everything can still be discussed. Otherwise, when Bian Yun returns, not to mention you, even your entire flourished Cloud Sea region will be slaughtered by Bian Yun. If you let go of Bian Rang now, we will plead for you in front of Bian Yun. At this time, many experts in the Taifeng Sea region spoke up to plead for Bian Rang, seemingly for Yi Shiwen's sake. Although they didn't like Bian Rang, they were more afraid of Bian Yun, the guy who had been riding roughshod over them for hundreds of years. If Bian Yun came back and knew that his younger brother was killed, no one could guarantee what Bian Yun would do in anger. Chapter 1037. Although Bian Rang was usually very unconvinced with Bian Yun was famous for spoiling this younger brother of his. If he knew that Yi Shiwen had beheaded Bian Rang under the watchful eyes of the public, then it would be hard to say what Bian Yun would do if he was enraged. The people of the flourished Cloud Sea region would definitely be slaughtered, but they would not be any better. Bian Rang, who was furious, was simply like a beast. At this time, they couldn't let Yi Shiwen behead Bian Rang no matter what. At this time, Yi Shiwen glanced at the crowd lazily. It seemed that he didn't put their words in his eyes at all. Instead, he was thinking by himself. The sword just now gave him a great shock. In fact, his swordsmanship could only be regarded as half-baked compared to those who truly specialized in swordsmanship. In other words, his main focus was not on swordsmanship. However, he had always been successful in every endeavor. In addition to the sword intention that he had obtained in the true martial domain, the buried sword's secrets had infinite power. Any kind of opponent would be torn apart. Therefore, he had not shown much of his strength. But when he launched the burial sword, buried earth sword, and buried heaven sword into one, he discovered that the buried sword tactics was far less powerful. In other words, as the enemies he faced became stronger and stronger, the buried sword tactics became less and less powerful. It was also because Bian Rang was a half-step law manifestation realm master, and Yi Shiwen was only in the transcendent realm. But previously, Yi Shiwen planned to blast him with a sword without leaving any future trouble. Now, he only severely injured Bian Rang and failed to kill him. This had aroused Yi Shiwen's vigilance. Perhaps it was time to upgrade the buried sword tactics and deduce the buried sword tactics to a level that could adapt to Yi Shiwen's current combat environment. He could feel that the buried sword's secrets had this kind of potential. Generally speaking, the grander the concept of a martial art was, the greater the room for improvement. The buried sword's secrets definitely had room for improvement because its concept was absolutely grand. Although in Yi Shiwen's opinion, the grade was not very high, this buried sword technique itself was a martial arts manual left behind by an opponent who once fought with the Star Beast. What kind of cultivation did the Star Beast have? Even the current Yi Shiwen still couldn't compare to it. Maybe it was a terrifying monster that surpassed the law manifestation realm. How could it be an ordinary item if it took a liking to it? Although its grade wasn't high, its potential was limitless. This was also what Yi Shiwen valued. On the other hand, the sword intent that he relied on to run rampant still had room for improvement. Now that he thought about it, he still couldn't see through the old man in the Devil Commander's tomb. Just a strand of sword intent was already so terrifying. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the old man was when he was alive. And the one he was guarding was just a demon marshal. From EMO, Yi Shiwen also knew that the Transcendent Realm demons were the real demon generals, and only the Law Manifestation Realm demons were qualified to call themselves Devil Commanders. Such a powerful old man was only suppressing a demon commander's tomb? Yi Shiwen didn't know about this because some secrets were too old. Even EMO didn't know, let alone him. He only knew that he had benefited a lot from this sword intent. He slowly began to have his own swordsmanship. These were all brought about by this sword intent. As for what they said, Yi Shiwen didn't put it in his heart at all. Although he didn't know what Bian Yun's strength was, it was certain that he was far stronger than Bian Rang. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen couldn't help but feel a little urgent, but it was just a little urgent. It was impossible for him to let go of Bian Rang. Yi Shiwen, give this kid to me. A warrior of half-step law phase realm is enough to upgrade Tianyuan mirror to peak human level. At that time, it will not be far from Earth level. Yi Mo's voice suddenly appeared and said. During this period of time, Yi Mo had been preparing to break through to the peak of the human level, so he rarely appeared. Unexpectedly, Bian Rang woke Yi Mo up with a start. And Yi Shiwen didn't hesitate. He directly grabbed a bloody crack in the air and threw Bian Rang directly into it. As soon as Bian Rang entered, he was directly caught by the power of law. His limbs were firmly nailed to the ground, and the chains of law locked him in it. The Tianyuan mirror drained his blood essence little by little. After a while, he was absorbed into a dried human, and died on the spot. Although the half-step law manifestation realm was not the law manifestation realm, it was far beyond the average transcendent realm master. Tianyuan mirror, which could only transform slowly, seemed to be stimulated all of a sudden. Clusters of bloody light burst out from Yi Shiwen's body. However, it was immediately suppressed by the star universe in Yi Shiwen's dantian, preventing the bloody light from penetrating his body. Ah! Before the crack closed quickly, Bian Rang's scream was heard, making people shudder. You! Those Taifeng Sea region experts were a little dumbfounded. They didn't expect that Yi Shiwen was still unmoved after saying so much. How daring! He doesn't seem to be afraid of Bian Yun at all. In this regard, the Flourished Cloud Sea region's human clan experts were calm. The reason was simple. The master in front of them had slaughtered the Vanishing Shadow Poisonous Crocodile clan and Poisonous Flaming Dragon clan before he came, causing the two clans to suffer heavy losses. Knowing that there was no place for him in the entire Flourished Cloud Sea region, he still dared to do it, let alone killing Bian Rang. Could killing Bian Rang be more serious than directly killing the two clans' experts? Yi Shiwen was simply a lawless strongman. In his eyes, the law and identity were all fleeting clouds. It couldn't make him look at Yi Shiwen at all. Okay, all of you get lost. Yi Shiwen looked at these Taifeng Sea region people and said, You! The Taifeng Sea region people widened their eyes. After killing Bian Rang, he didn't run away, but asked them to get lost? What logic is this? All of a sudden, it seemed that their minds were not enough to process it. It seemed to have completely subverted their original ideas. In their opinion, Yi Shiwen, who had made a big mistake, should run away now. How would he dare to stay at this time? Isn't it said that the person with the bigger fist dominates everything? Now I announce that this place will belong to the Flourished Cloud Sea region in the future. It will be renamed Flourished Cloud City. Yi Shiwen looked at the Taifeng Sea region people and said coldly, In this world, the person with the bigger fist had the right to speak. Initially, Yi Shiwen wanted to kill these people, but now he had no interest in doing so. Bian Rang was dead, and Bian Yun had not returned yet. These people were just a group of stragglers. It was not worth much effort at all. Moreover, the Taifeng Sea region's approach was equivalent to opening another window in front of him. Bian Yun's return was imminent. Compared to Bian Rang, Bian Yun was a more terrifying opponent. Yi Shiwen directly extracted Bian Rang's memory and found that Bian Yun had already entered the half-step law manifestation realm. By now, he had probably entered the half-step law manifestation peak. With the current Yi Shiwen, he could only protect himself and could not defeat Bian Yun. Only by quickly improving his strength and pushing his cultivation to the Transcendent Realm's 7th level peak could it be possible to fight with Bian Yun and win. Not long ago, Yi Shiwen had just entered the Transcendent Realm's 7th level. It was impossible to achieve such progress in a short time in the outside world. Otherwise, many people would not have spent thousands of years and were still lingering in the Transcendent Realm, unable to cross into the Law Manifestation Realm. But in the blood world, it was possible. The blood chi that filled the sky could quickly increase one's cultivation without any side effects. These young experts in the blood realm, even if they did nothing, as long as they could survive in the end, their cultivation would improve greatly. It was all because of these blood energies. Ordinary blood energies were not enough for Yi Shiwen to absorb, but bloodstones were different. These crystallized blood energies were what Yi Shiwen urgently needed at the moment. If he were to rely on himself to condense the bloodstone, only God knew when he would be able to do so. But if he could occupy this Taifeng city, then even if he could only collect a small portion of the taxes, it would still be an astronomical amount of wealth. It would be far better than fighting alone. At this time, he suddenly understood why the disciples of those major forces improved so quickly. With the support of an entire force, the resources were far beyond the imagination of those individual cultivators. Not to mention a city lord like him. With the support of a large number of bloodstones, he could quickly advance his cultivation to the Transcendent Realm's 7th level peak. Even Bian Rang's cultivation forcibly broke through to the half-step law manifestation initial after Bian Yun accumulated countless bloodstones. Once this idea was born, there was no way to erase it. This was the only way for him to quickly improve his cultivation so far. He didn't want to be chased by Bian Yun everywhere like a stray dog. Why? Aren't you leaving yet? Do you want to stay and die? Yi Shiwen's voice became colder. At this time, those Taifeng Sea region experts finally regained their senses. They quickly turned around and fled. Even Bian Rang, a half-step law manifestation initial master, died tragically in Yi Shiwen's hands, let alone these Transcendent Realm warriors. They might not be Yi Shiwen's opponent at all. It was not much more difficult than crushing an ant. These Taifeng Sea region experts could only glare at Yi Shiwen with hatred. When Bian Yun comes back, I want you to die without a burial place. Also, those who came from the flourished Cloud Sea region must die. All of them must die. Yi Shiwen's heart was filled with hatred, but his actions were not slow. He quickly disappeared from everyone's sight. Chapter 1038. The experts of various sea regions and clans were still a little dumbfounded. Suddenly, there was a king's flag on the city wall? Did this Taifeng city belong to the flourished Cloud Sea region now? Although it was a little sudden, everyone quickly accepted this fact. In this world, whoever had the bigger fist was the master. The law of the jungle was vividly reflected at this moment. For them, although they suspected that Yi Shiwen would be beheaded after Bian Yun returned, they only secretly criticized in their hearts. Although their numbers were many times more than Yi Shiwen's, in fact, in front of Yi Shiwen, who had the combat power of the half-step law manifestation realm, the numbers seemed a little too ridiculous. Only those in the same realm could fight with him. Now, the only half-step law manifestation realm expert in Taifeng City, Bian Rang, had already been defeated by Yi Shiwen. How could they dare to challenge him? Moreover, for them, this tax had to be paid every day. It was nothing more than changing the person to pay the tax. There was no difference in essence. It was only the people of Taifeng Sea region who were expelled. It had nothing to do with them. Hence, all of this seemed to happen very suddenly, but to them, it was a very logical thing to do. The human experts of the flourished Cloud Sea region were overjoyed. They didn't expect that they, who were quarreling with Pang Tiangan about the taxes they had to pay when they entered the city, would suddenly become the master of Taifeng City. Of course, they all understood that there would only be one true master of the flourished Cloud Sea region, and that was Yishiwen. However, they could also share a lot of benefits. Not to mention the bloodstone that they did not have to pay every day. It would be a huge wealth after accumulating for a long time. Although there were only a few people, under the leadership of Yishiwen, the people of the flourished Cloud Sea region still entered the city with great fanfare. The experts of various sea regions in the city just looked at Yishiwen, who dared to rub the tiger's whiskers, with slight curiosity. Doesn't he know that Bian Yun has not returned yet? When Edge Cloud came back, the flourished Cloud Sea region might face a catastrophe. Under everyone's gaze, the few experts from the flourished Cloud Sea region also raised their heads proudly. The flourished Cloud Sea region was a relatively weak existence among many sea regions. Although this Taifeng city was claimed to be built by the flourished Cloud Sea region and many sea regions together, in fact, the master was only the Beacon Sea region. Their status had never been high. When had they ever enjoyed such attention? Although they were a little worried about Edge Cloud's revenge after returning, that was also a matter for the future. At least for now, they had unlimited glory, right? Yishiwen immediately knew the place where they had stored the bloodstones after inspecting Bien Rang's memories. So many days had passed. The Tai Feng Sea region had taken over the original Feng Shui city after they had defeated the Feng Shui Sea region. They had collected a large number of bloodstones, and stored them in a warehouse in the city. These bloodstones belonged to the entire Tai Feng Sea region in name. However, Bian Yun was in charge of distributing the bloodstones for the time being. Therefore, he hadn't taken them with him. And now, this huge wealth had completely fallen into Yishiwen's hands. From Bien Rang's memory, Yishiwen knew that this fortune was no less than 1 million bloodstones. And this was because everyone had just entered the blood world a few days ago. Otherwise, it would be a huge fortune after accumulating it for a long time. Although it was nominally the entire wealth of the Tai Feng Sea region, in fact, it was still Edge Cloud's private wealth. Even in the Tai Feng Sea region, who dared to raise an objection? No one among them was Edge Cloud's opponent. Although the share was very small now, if they fell out with Edge Cloud, then there would be no benefits at all. Edge Cloud used 500,000 bloodstones to forcibly promote Bien Rang to the half-step law manifestation realm initial master. In addition, Edge Cloud also used a lot of bloodstones himself. Otherwise, the wealth left for Yishiwen would be more. But even so, 1 million bloodstones was enough to make Yishiwen overjoyed. If he wanted to make rapid progress in his current realm, he must absorb a large number of bloodstones. Now that he had this batch of bloodstones in his hands, it completely solved his urgent need. The bloodstones that piled up like a mountain were completely collected by him in an instant. He took a deep breath. Edge Cloud! Come on! Let the storm come more fiercely! With these bloodstones, he immediately felt more confident. Soon, the news of Yishiwen killing Bien Rang, occupying the entire Taifeng city, and changing its name to Flourishing Cloud City was spread out. The people who were originally scattered in the flourished Cloud Sea region also rushed back one after another. For a time, the entire Flourishing Cloud City suddenly became lively. With the addition of Pei Xingqian, Sea Dragon Young Master, and others, Yishiwen finally did not have to manage this city personally. These people were used to being the young sect master. They were very familiar with management. Everything was managed in an orderly manner. Yishiwen did not need to worry about it at all. After Flourishing Cloud City was on the right track, Yishiwen immediately gathered the current high-level officials in Flourishing Cloud City. They were basically acquaintances of Yishiwen. The original 6 Overlord forces, except for the Vanishing Shadow Poisonous Crocodile Clan and Poisonous Flaming Dragon Clan experts who were killed by him before, the other overlords and some other experts gathered here, including Sea Dragon Young Master, Pei Xingqian, Princess, Jing Wuhui, Bai Hanmo, Yao Qian, and others. Originally, there was also Jian Wushuang, but Jian Wushuang left the team early and went to the depths of the Blood Realm for trial. He was the one who truly regarded this Blood Realm trial as a rare opportunity to gain experience. Like a lonely wolf, he was destined to embark on a journey alone. Except for him, Yi Shiwen had basically gathered all the others together. Everyone was still a little excited because as a manager, they never thought of managing this flourishing cloud city before this. Although it was only a few days, they also gained a lot of benefits. In addition to the 1 million bloodstones, Yi Shiwen basically distributed the other newly collected bloodstones to everyone in the flourished Cloud Sea region. He knew very well that the only thing he could rely on now was these young experts in the flourished Cloud Sea region. The experts in other sea regions were not hostile to him, but they were basically waiting to see him make a fool of himself. They wanted to see how Edge Cloud would deal with him after he returned. Although Yi Shiwen beheaded Bien Rang and established his prestige, there was still a big gap compared with Bien Rang's accumulated prestige. Everyone was waiting to see the final clash between these two before deciding whether or not they would settle down in the end. In other words, these people might have surrendered to Yi Shiwen's rule now, but they were actually just fence-sitters. Once Edge Cloud showed the strength to suppress Yi Shiwen, they might switch to Edge Cloud's subordinates at any time and become Yi Shiwen's enemy. In other words, there were not many people that Yi Shiwen could trust now. There was only one person from the flourished Cloud Sea region left. Although they were passively tied to Yi Shiwen's chariot, there was nothing they could do at this time. Even if Yi Shiwen left at this time, they would have to face Edge Cloud's monstrous anger. At this time, the only thing they could do was to support Yi Shiwen with all their might so that Yi Shiwen could defeat Edge Cloud. At least, they could withstand Edge Cloud's attack. Just like Yi Shiwen, they had no other way out. Either Yi Shiwen would win, or they would be completely wiped out. There was no room for survival in this area. Edge Cloud will be back within a month. Yi Shiwen did not say much nonsense. It was just the first sentence, and he went straight to the point. Everyone's complexion suddenly darkened. Although they didn't say it, Bien Yun's deterrence towards them had always existed. During this period of time, they had deliberately ignored Bien Yun's matter. Now that it was suddenly mentioned by Yi Shiwen, everyone's mood suddenly became heavy. In this month, I will do my best in close cultivation to seek a breakthrough. I will strive to have the strength to compete with Edge Cloud before he returns. Yi Shiwen announced his decision faintly. So, within this month, the flourishing Cloud City's matters will be entrusted to you. Now, the city will collect a considerable amount of bloodstones as taxes every day. You can also seize the time to cultivate. If you can break through to half-step law manifestation realm initial before Edge Cloud returns, then I have a much greater assurance. When everyone heard Yi Shiwen's words, their eyes suddenly lit up. Indeed, if they could also enter the half-step law manifestation realm, then whether it was to help Yi Shiwen or to protect themselves, it was equivalent to having one more favorable trump card. Although it seemed to be a bit difficult to enter the half-step law manifestation realm within a month, it was not. For these people, their accumulation was already deep enough, especially these people present. Which one of them was not at the peak of Transcendent Realm 9th level? They only needed an opportunity to enter the half-step law manifestation realm. The Bloodstone could accelerate this process, allowing them to forcibly break into the half-step law manifestation realm. Previously, Bien Rang was built by Bien Yun using countless Bloodstones to forcefully break into the half-step law phase realm. If Bien Rang was able to do it, then those with higher cultivation than him would naturally be able to do it as well. No problem, Elder Brother Yi. I will help you manage this flourishing Cloud City well. Bai Hanmo nodded and said. The others on the side echoed one after another. After the news of Yi Shiwen beheading Bien Rang spread, they naturally accepted the fact that Yi Shiwen replaced young Master Sea Dragon as their leader. Even Jing Wuyuan, a Sea clan, expressed his support for Yi Shiwen. After all, at this time, they all belonged to the flourished Cloud Sea region. Yi Shiwen's honor and disgrace were bound together. Chapter 1039. After explaining, Yi Shiwen began to cultivate in close cultivation. Although time was tight, Bien Yun would return in a month at most. From Bien Rang's scattered memories, he didn't know what Bien Yun had gone to do. However, with enough bloodstones, it was enough for him to go all out. In the worst-case scenario, he was confident that with his current strength, it wouldn't be a problem for him to retreat. Edge Cloud was not enough to pose a fatal threat to him. Millions of bloodstones were piled up in Tianyuan Mirror. Not only Yi Shiwen was absorbing the blood qi in the bloodstones, but Tianyuan Mirror was also absorbing the blood qi in these bloodstones. Yi Shiwen still didn't know how these blood qi were formed. Even the world's spiritual energy needed to circulate in the body, and then be transformed into his qi. However, these blood qi could be directly absorbed. In the secret room, Yi Shiwen opened his mouth directly. A stream of blood qi turned into a long river and poured into his body. Suddenly, he felt that his cultivation was refined little by little. This feeling made him feel like he could not stop even if he wanted to. According to this speed, he might be able to enter the Transcendent Realm's 7th level peak within a month. At that time, he would not have to be afraid of Edge Cloud. No wonder so many people would grit their teeth and send people to participate in the trial of blood even though they knew that the trial of blood was bloody and cruel, and the casualty rate was simply unimaginable. This was probably the reason. Because if they didn't participate in the trial of blood, then it was possible that the experts of the younger generation in their faction would completely fall behind the others. This was because the opponents of these young experts of the various factions were destined not to be the other young experts of their own factions, but the experts of the various factions of the same sea region, and even the young experts of other sea regions. Only by standing out in these battles could they ensure that their factions would continue to prosper forever. The blood energy in the blood world couldn't be obtained in the outside world. Yi Shiwen suddenly thought of obtaining more blood stones in the blood world. Only in the outside world would he be able to promote his cultivation rapidly. Although these blood stones could directly promote one's cultivation, the effect was actually limited. Every blood stone could promote one's cultivation and progress. In fact, it would be difficult to feel it if one didn't carefully sense it. Only by relying on a large number of blood stones would it be possible to achieve this. However, these thoughts only flashed in his mind and were temporarily suppressed by him. He needed to pay attention to these things in the future. The priority now was to improve his strength. Time passed second by second while Yi Shiwen was in closed-door cultivation. Without Yi Shiwen's management, the entire flourishing Cloud City was still in good order. Although Yi Shiwen did not show up, the warriors living in flourishing Cloud City were very cooperative. They handed over sufficient bloodstones every day. There was no trouble just because the owner had changed. That was because they all knew that Yi Shiwen was a lawless person even though he hadn't shown himself. Anyway, the outcome of who would win between him and Bien Yun would be known very soon. So, they didn't need to risk their lives for the sake of the people of Taifeng Sea area. As for the high-level members of the flourished Cloud Sea region, their cultivation improved very quickly because of the supplement of these bloodstones. On the 5th day, young Master Sea Dragon, who had the deepest cultivation, was the first to break through and successfully entered the early stage of the half-step law manifestation realm. The flourished Cloud Sea region was in an uproar. Besides Yi Shiwen, they finally had a second half-step law manifestation realm combat power. To them, this had a completely different meaning. This meant that the flourished Cloud Sea region might not just fall like a meteor. The half-step law manifestation realm was a threshold. In the blood realm, there were too many Transcendent Realm 9th level experts. However, how many half-step law manifestation experts were there? Yi Shiwen was the only one in the entire flourishing Cloud City. Now, there was one more. For the people of other sea regions, this was also a great deterrent. Even without Yi Shiwen, the current flourished Cloud Sea region was definitely not a sea region that could be bullied by others. In a small sea region, having a half-step law manifestation expert was enough to build an independent city. It could even be said that if the flourished Cloud Sea region wanted to build an independent city, a large number of followers would also go there. After all, including Yi Shiwen, the flourished Cloud Sea region had 2 half-step law manifestation experts. Although there might be a large number of Transcendent Realm 9th level experts entering the half-step law manifestation realm in the later stage, any half-step law manifestation expert was still valuable. By that time, these current half-step law manifestation experts must have entered a higher level. The top of the pyramid would always belong to these experts who occupied an absolute advantage in the early stage. It would be too difficult to rise in the later stage. The flourished Cloud Sea region experts suddenly felt relieved. In their opinion, with Yishiwen and young Master Sea Dragon, they should be able to stop Edge Cloud at the very least. Suddenly, they worked even harder to manage their work. While Yishiwen was in seclusion, he also received news that young Master Hai Long had entered the half-step transcendence realm. To him, this was not surprising at all. Among these people, other than him, it should be said that young Master Hai Long's accumulation was the deepest. To be able to dominate the first place in the top 100 list, naturally, he would not be too bad. He was a level higher than everyone else. What's more, there was a supply of countless bloodstones now. It was not surprising that he was the first to enter the half-step law manifestation realm. Just when everyone thought it should be so, on the 15th day, another person broke through and entered the half-step law manifestation realm. It was not the veteran expert that everyone thought. Pei Xingqian, Jing Wuhui, or the princess, these well-known veteran experts. Instead, it was Bai Hanmo, who had always been indifferent. Yishiwen was optimistic about Bai Hanmo's excellent talent. After getting serious, Bai Hanmo's cultivation breakthrough speed surpassed Pei Xingqian and others. He knew that Edge Cloud's impending return might be the most serious test. It was rare that he didn't play around and devoted himself to cultivation. With the help of countless bloodstones, he successfully entered the early stage of the half-step law phase realm. After another 10 days, another person had a breakthrough. It was Pei Xingqian. After successfully entering the half-step law manifestation realm, his combat power had greatly increased. Several other experts, such as Jing Wuhui and others, even if their cultivation had not reached the half-step law manifestation realm, they were only one step away and could enter at any time. Even Yao Qian, who had just entered the Transcendent Realm 9th level, was now in the Transcendent Realm 9th level peak cultivation. Many other experts in the flourished Cloud Sea region had more or less made progress. Many Transcendent Realm 8th level peak experts had entered the Transcendent Realm 9th level in one fell swoop. At this time, just by looking at the lineup, it was actually more powerful than the Taifeng Sea area. This also caused many experts of the various sea areas to wail in grief. The wolf was really coming. According to this lineup, even if Edge Cloud led all the people of the Taifeng Sea area to fight back, he was afraid that it wouldn't be any better. After all, in terms of top experts, the flourished Cloud Sea region already had 3 half-step law manifestation experts. Even in terms of second-level experts, the flourished Cloud Sea region had gradually caught up with the Taifeng Sea region after cultivating crazily with the bloodstones for so long. Today, the balance in the hearts of everyone in Taifeng City slowly slid to the flourished Cloud Sea region's side. They seriously regarded the flourished Cloud Sea region as the ruler of this city. In many people's opinion, the flourished Cloud Sea region's people would be able to hold on to this foundation in the worst-case scenario. It would not be like what they initially thought. After Edge Cloud returned, the flourished Cloud Sea region would be defeated like stray dogs fleeing in panic, or even annihilated. This had a great effect on calming the hearts of the people in the flourished Cloud Sea region. Yes, they would not immediately become fence-sitters and switch sides when Edge Cloud just returned. Although these were just fence-sitters, if so many people switched sides, it would be a disaster for the flourished Cloud Sea region. Of course, some people were dismissive. In their opinion, although there were many half-step law manifestation experts in the flourished Cloud Sea region, there was no way to compare with Edge Cloud, a veteran half-step law manifestation expert. Just like Bian Rang did not have much resistance against Yishiwen at all. He was easily defeated and killed. This was irrefutable evidence. Of course, these words were only in their minds. They did not dare to say it out loud. But as time approached day by day, the entire flourished cloud sea region looked like a war was imminent. It was like the calm before the storm. The silence was frighteningly oppressive. Everyone was waiting for the moment when Edge Cloud returned and the war was about to begin. For the flourished cloud sea region, the emerging overlord of the flourished cloud city, Edge Cloud would be their biggest test. If they could not overcome this hurdle, or at least withstand Edge Cloud's attack, then all their ambitions would be in vain. The flourished cloud sea region would still be a small sea region that everyone could bully. The current performance was just a flash in the pan. As the atmosphere became more and more oppressive, everyone's eyes were focused on Edge Cloud, who might come back at any time, and Yishiwen, who had been in close cultivation. It seemed that there was no change in the tense atmosphere outside. Day after day, there was no change at all. It seemed that he was still in a deep level of close cultivation. Even when the two experts, Sea Dragon Young Master and Pei Xingqian, advanced to the half-step law manifestation realm, he did not appear. This also made everyone a little curious. Did he make any progress in the past month? If he did, to what level did he reach? On this day, the sky was still blood red. Suddenly, the air began to boil quickly. Bastards of the flourished cloud sea region, come out! I want you to die without a burial place! An angry roar swept from a distance. Chapter 1040. Edge Cloud is back. This thought suddenly popped up in everyone's mind. Suddenly, the thoughts that had been suppressed for a month erupted uncontrollably like a volcanic eruption. Since Edge Cloud had returned, the conflict between the two sides was almost inevitable. There were countless spiritual senses in the sky, sweeping out one after another. However, they saw a white silhouette directly descending upon flourishing Cloud City with unparalleled might. When he stood still, everyone could see clearly that it was a young man in a white robe who was somewhat similar to Bien Rang. However, compared to Bien Rang, he had more might, which was far from what Bien Rang could compare to. Although he did not report his name, even those from the flourished Cloud Sea region knew the identity of the person who came. Edge Cloud. Sure enough, he came back. It didn't take long for another large group of people to fly over flourishing Cloud City, firmly occupying the entire sky above flourishing Cloud City. It was the Taifeng Sea region experts who had fled before. In addition to them, many other Transcendent Realm 9th level experts emerged. Aren't those people from the Feng Shui Sea region? Why are they involved with the Taifeng Sea region at this time? Some sharp-eyed people had already recognized that these additional people were the Feng Shui Sea region experts who were originally driven away. Unexpectedly, they were now involved with the Taifeng Sea region. Sure enough, their leader was the original top genius of the Feng Shui Sea region, Zhou Sueki. He was also a Sea Clan youth who looked about 27 or 28 years old. His strength was abnormally tyrannical. He had long entered the half-step law manifestation initial. These two forces joined forces and instantly enveloped the entire flourished Cloud Sea region. That kid named Yishiwen, come out! Edge Cloud sneered, looking at the flourished Cloud Sea region's experts who emerged at this time, and said with a cruel smile. The flourished Cloud Sea region's experts had assumed a combat stance. As Edge Cloud returned with a large number of experts, the conflict between them was almost inevitable. Initially, they might have given up flourishing Cloud City. But now, as they occupied flourishing Cloud City for a longer time, they enjoyed more and more benefits. Many people's cultivation had made great progress because of the supply of a large number of bloodstones. At this time, they and the entire flourishing Cloud City were already in a relationship of glory and disgrace. What's more, the sky had been sealed off by the two great forces. They couldn't escape at all, so they could only fight with their backs to the wall. Edge Cloud! At this moment, a calm voice rang out from the city. Everyone looked over and saw that it was young Master Hai Long walking over slowly. He looked completely different from the sickly appearance he had when he was heavily injured. After breaking into the half-step transcendence realm, his aura was completely released. It was definitely gentle like jade, but it didn't lack majesty. Young Master Hai Long! Edge Cloud squinted his eyes, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Typhoon Sea region had been coveting the flourished Cloud Sea region for a long time. Naturally, he was very knowledgeable about the young experts in the flourished Cloud Sea region. He had fought with Sea Dragon Young Master several times. I haven't seen you for a long time. You've gotten a lot bolder. Edge Cloud gritted his teeth and said. It's always been big, never small. Young Master Sea Dragon looked straight at Edge Cloud and did not give in at all. Their gazes clashed in midair, and people could faintly hear the sound of an intense collision. This was a battle of wills. You know that Bien Rang is my younger brother. You even dared to kill him. I think you are really tired of living, Edge Cloud said coldly. Edge Cloud, what else is there to say? Just kill them all. Zhou Sweki, the leader of the Feng Shui Sea region, said coldly. Don't waste time, but you must remember your promise to let us rebuild the city in the Feng Shui Sea region. Of course, it's up to you. Edge Cloud didn't even look at Zhou Sweki. He just stared at young Master Hailong as if he was looking at a dead man. Hatred flickered in his eyes. His dearest brother was dead, and he died in the hands of the flourished Cloud Sea region that he had never looked up to. Everyone came to a realization. It turned out to be because of this reason. No wonder the proud Feng Shui Sea region and Typhoon Sea region would turn around and help Edge Cloud. It turned out that Edge Cloud had agreed to such conditions. One must know that the blood world was incomparably dangerous. There were terrifying blood beasts everywhere. Without the protection of a city, the chances of survival would be very small. Those powerful experts might be able to survive, but for those big forces, they would need to rely on a city. Otherwise, the losses would be too great for them to bear. But for those big forces, they would need to rely on a city. However, these cities were not only a means to resist the blood fiends, but also a treasure bowl. As long as countless people were sheltered in it, they could amass a lot of wealth. Therefore, in general, the same city was not allowed to exist within a radius of a city. Otherwise, their wealth might be scattered. But for the people of the Feng Shui Sea region, places far from the flourished Cloud City were unfamiliar to them. They might encounter experts from other sea regions. In that case, conflicts might arise again. Hence, after being driven out, they faced the situation of being homeless. Now, Edge Cloud actually allowed them to rebuild a city within the sphere of influence of the flourished Cloud Sea region. No wonder they were willing to work hard to help the Typhoon Sea region. Brother Sea Dragon, let's do it directly. We must not let them disturb Brother Ye's close cultivation. At this time, another clear voice came from the city. Bai Hanmo jumped out and said. Facing the experts of the two major forces, he did not have the slightest change of expression, as if he was facing a group of air. Another half-step law manifestation realm expert. At this time, Zhou Sweki's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. Disregarding Yishiwen who could kill Bien Rang, young Master Sea Dragon being a half-step law manifestation realm was already beyond his imagination. Now, another one actually emerged. Thinking of this, the surprise in his heart was immediately overwhelmed by more jealousy and anger. He had never heard of the flourished Cloud Sea region. The sudden emergence of so many experts must have something to do with those bloodstones. After enjoying the many benefits enjoyed by his ancestors, so many experts emerged. All of this should belong to him and their Feng Shui Sea region. Now, he was like a stray dog. He had to rely on Bien Yun's permission to come back. The depression in his heart was imaginable. But he had no way to deal with Bien Yun because he was not Bien Yun's opponent. Hence, he vented all his anger on the flourished Cloud Sea region. Zhou Sweki, do you really want to mess with these Typhoon Sea region people? Young Master Sea Dragon asked in a deep voice. If he could, he did not want to force these Feng Shui Sea region people to the hostile side. Young Master Sea Dragon, you don't have to say any more. If you know what's good for you, you should surrender early and save yourself the trouble, said Zhou Sweki with a sneer. Brother Sea Dragon, what else is there to say to them? Does that Zhou something dare to take my sword? Bai Hanmo had no patience to argue with them. His figure immediately burst out. A white jade long sword appeared in his hand. A powerful sword aura burst out in the air, falling towards Zosweki. How dare you! When Zosweki saw that Baihanmo dared to ambush him, he was furious. He was not caught off guard. After all, Baihanmo was far away from him. A surprise attack could not really achieve the effect of a surprise attack. But what really made him furious was Zosweki's attitude. He was used to being aloof. As the only half-step law manifestation expert in the Feng Shui Sea region, his status in the Feng Shui Sea region was only higher than young Master Sea Dragon in the flourished Cloud Sea region. But now, he was like a stray dog. Forget about Bian Yun. Who was this kid in front of him? How dare he make a move on him? Baihanmo's attack arrived in an instant. His swordsmanship had been cultivated to a terrifying realm. When the sword aura was waved, the whole world turned into a white jade world. He launched a fierce offensive as soon as he came up. Like a rampaging tank, anything in front of him would be destroyed. He was invincible. Dang! Baihanmo's long sword slashed on the long spear in Zosweki's hand. The huge force suddenly swayed in the long spear in his hand. Baihanmo's power made Zosweki's perlicue faintly show signs of cracking. But at this time, he couldn't care so much because Baihanmo launched another wave of attack. Dang! 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 Baihanmo's attack was like an endless wave. It swept out in an instant, continuous. Zosweki didn't pay attention to Baihanmo at first, and suffered a small loss. Then, he couldn't make a counterattack at all. He completely fell into Baihanmo's rhythm. Baihanmo's offensive continued to pour down. It was terrifying. Hiss, I didn't expect that in the flourished Cloud Sea region, there is such a terrifying guy. This thought emerged in everyone's mind. Zosweki had accumulated prestige among them for a long time. Although he was defeated by Bian Yun, he was still a veteran half-step law manifestation expert in everyone's opinion. His strength was unfathomable. Except for Bian Yun, he should be the strongest existence in this area. But now, he was completely suppressed by Baihanmo. Although part of the reason was that Baihanmo attacked first and caught him off guard, this could not cover up the fact that Baihanmo was indeed powerful. Baihanmo alone was already so powerful. How strong was young Master Sea Dragon, who had already become famous and had now stepped into the half-step law manifestation realm? Damn it! Zosweki, who had completely fallen into a disadvantageous position, suddenly became furious. He felt like he had made a fool of himself in front of the entire city. Chapter 1041. It was fine to be defeated by Bian Rang. Bian Rang had long been famous. His prestige shocked various sea regions. However, who was this kid in front of him? He dared to be presumptuous in front of him, and even suppressed him. The anger in his heart was burning endlessly. He was also enraged. The long spear in his hand suddenly pierced out. Although he was also a spear user, it was obviously a completely different path from Bian Rang's. His moves were exquisite, and it was obvious that he had comprehended the essence of the spear. The tip of the spear suddenly burst into a terrifying spear light, piercing the vast sky. It was like a spear piercing through the world. It instantly broke Baihanmo's defense, broke through his sword light, and pierced directly into his body. Dang! However, he heard the sound of metal clashing. He saw that the spear had pierced into his body, but it stopped on his skin, unable to penetrate further. It could only leave a white mark on his white jade-like skin. Hiss! Zosweki suddenly took a breath of cold air. What kind of defense is this? He knew the power of his spear very well. He attacked with hatred and did not hold back at all. A half-step law manifestation realm expert attacked with all his might. The power was unimaginable. Yet, it failed to pierce through the surface of his skin. It was conceivable how exaggerated the defense of his skin was. At this moment, Baihanmo took the opportunity to attack. Yishuan's spear did not cause any trouble to Yishuan. Baihanmo's sword once again slashed through the world and went straight to Yishuan's face. The speed was so fast that it was terrifying. Bai Hanmo seemed to be sure that Zhou Sueki couldn't break through his defense. He was relieved to disregard the defense, and directly attacked again. If one looked closely, they could see a wave of jade-like flowing water at the place where Bai Hanmo was pierced by the long spear just now. At the moment when the long spear pierced his skin, a lot of qi was consumed in an instant. Yes, in order to resist this attack, he had consumed a large amount of true essence. His physical body, which had been tempered by this cultivation technique, could not be compared to the tyrant body. Although it was also very strong, every time he received an attack, he had to consume a large amount of true essence to resist. His own defensive power was not that strong. If it wasn't for the technique that automatically protected its owner, he would have been pierced into a bloody gourd by now. So Sueki quickly turned around to defend. He was almost hit by Bai Hanmo's sword. He didn't have Bai Hanmo's attack power. If he was hit, he would be split in half on the spot. The two sides fought fiercely. Bai Hanmo's fighting style was simply unafraid of death. He didn't care at all. He directly rushed forward, disregarding defense. Facing this crazy fighting style, Zhou Sueki was completely at a disadvantage. Bai Hanmo could ignore defense, but Zhou Sueki couldn't. If he didn't defend, he would die on the spot. Even if he could find time to counterattack once or twice from Bai Hanmo's storm-like attacks, it would be useless. Just like the first shot, it could only leave white marks on Bai Hanmo's body, unable to penetrate. Up until now, he was extremely aggrieved. He could see that Bai Hanmo's cultivation was far inferior to his. After all, he had entered the half-step law manifestation realm far longer than Bai Hanmo. He was already a half-step law manifestation realm expert before entering the blood world. Bai Hanmo just broke through in this half a month. The gap between them was huge. If it weren't for Bai Hanmo's fearless and crazy fighting style, he would have been dead long ago if he was replaced by an ordinary expert of the same strength. At this time, Bai Hanmo also began to feel anxious. This fighting style seemed to be able to completely suppress Zhou Sueki, but his strength was slightly inferior to Zhou Sueki after all. At this time, the consumption to maintain this fighting style was unimaginable. Especially his physique cultivation technique. Every time he was hit, he would consume a lot of qi. If this continued, he knew very well that he would be defeated in the end. If he was given a certain amount of time, when his cultivation caught up with Zhou Sueki, he could even defeat Zhou Sueki easily, but not now. Boom! 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 The battle between the two sides was very intense. No one knew how many times they had exchanged blows in midair. Waves of aftershocks spread out, forcing the Transcendent Realm experts to activate their protective aura to prevent themselves from being injured by these aftershocks. After all, it wasn't impossible. In fact, it was highly possible. Humph! Suddenly, another cold snort came from the sky. At this time, Edge Cloud, who had been waiting impatiently, made a move. As soon as he made a move, a big hand made of qi grabbed straight at Bai Hanmo. Bai Hanmo, who was in the battle, had no time to dodge. He was caught directly. Boom! His figure flew out like a kite with a broken string. A mouthful of blood spurted out. After his figure rolled dozens of times in midair, he stopped. He looked at Edge Cloud coldly, bit the blood stains on the corner of his mouth, and said, "Despicable! Cut the crap! Where is Yishiwen? I want him to die without a burial place," said Edge Cloud coldly. He had no patience to continue waiting. "I don't have the patience to continue." On the side, Zhou Sueki calmed down, and his face was a bit ugly. Although Edge Cloud didn't say it out loud, the meaning was already very obvious. You, a veteran half-step law manifestation realm master, was actually suppressed by this junior without any ability to fight back. Isn't it shameful? He was not in the mood to watch this farce continue. But at this time, he couldn't say a word. Although he wanted to refute, he couldn't say it because he really had no way to deal with Bai Hanmo. In other words, he had no way to deal with the current Bai Hanmo. Even if Edge Cloud said this in front of him to humiliate him, he had no way to deal with it. Everyone, go! I want to kill the Flourished Cloud Sea region. In this Blood Realm trial, the name of the Flourished Cloud Sea region will not appear again, said Edge Cloud while gritting his teeth. Before his voice fell, he took the lead to make a move. The opponent was none other than Sea Dragon Young Master. As Sea Dragon Young Master's arm grabbed out in an instant, it transformed into a long spear that pierced through the sky and earth. As soon as the spear was launched, the entire world was distorted. The single spear went straight to Sea Dragon Young Master's face. This move was meant to kill Sea Dragon Young Master, leaving no room for him to fight back. At this time, Sea Dragon Young Master finally made a move. A long saber appeared in his hand. The saber light instantly cut through the sky and earth, sweeping towards Sea Dragon Young Master's spear. Boom! The long spear and the saber light collided fiercely in the air. The terrifying shock waves swept out in circles. In the sky, some experts from both sea regions couldn't even stand firm and were about to be blown away. The battle between Sea Dragon Young Master and Edge Cloud was obviously more intense and terrifying than the battle between Zosweki and Bihanmo. Sea Dragon Young Master's vigorous chi was almost no worse than Edge Cloud's. But as soon as the two sides fought, the gap was obvious. Edge Cloud, who had already stepped into the half-step law manifestation realm, was obviously stronger than Sea Dragon Young Master. His spear light directly shattered Sea Dragon Young Master's saber light. Although it was weakened a lot, it still went straight to Sea Dragon Young Master's face. Sea Dragon Young Master slashed again. The saber light shattered the spear light and blocked all his attacks. On the other side, the battle between Bihanmo and Zosweki began again. Although he was severely injured by Edge Cloud previously, Bihanmo didn't have any intention of being timid in this battle. On the contrary, he became even crazier. He fought like a madman. Because he knew very well that Yishiwen was now in close cultivation, and he had to buy enough time for Yishiwen. Only when Yishiwen came out of close cultivation could he determine the outcome of the battle. Obviously, Sea Dragon Young Master was also very clear about this. So even though his strength was obviously worse than Edge Cloud, he still held Edge Cloud back and prevented Edge Cloud from finding Yishiwen. As long as Yishiwen came out of close cultivation, then the outcome would be determined. If Yishiwen could defeat Edge Cloud, they would win. If Yishiwen lost, then they could only flee for their lives. At the same time, the experts from both sea regions joined forces to encircle the experts from the Flourished Cloud Sea region in the city. At this time, the experts from other sea regions in the city rushed out. The experts from both sea regions did not stop them. In their opinion, these people were their milk cows. They would provide them with blood stones in the future. At this time, the experts from the Flourished Cloud Sea region also understood that it was the most critical time for a life-and-death battle. In the face of the ambush of the experts from the two sea regions, they did not retreat. Under the leadership of Yao Qian, Jing Wuhui, and others, they began to intercept and kill the experts from the major forces of the two sea regions. Edge Cloud was very strong. Although Sea Dragon Young Master was also talented, his cultivation time was relatively short after all. He was defeated all the way. Edge Cloud, don't be arrogant. Eat my halberd! Before the voice faded, a bronze halberd turned into a long dragon and instantly broke through the sky, attacking Edge Cloud. It was Pei Xingqian, who had been hiding for a long time, who finally couldn't help but make a move. Another half-step law manifestation realm. Edge Cloud frowned suddenly. He directly defeated this long dragon with a spear. He did not expect that after Sea Dragon Young Master and Bihanmo, there was another half-step law manifestation realm expert hiding in the Flourished Cloud Sea region. How was this possible? In his impression, the Flourished Cloud Sea region was just an inconspicuous small sea region. How could there be so many outstanding people in succession? Then come at me together. Let me kill all of you! However, Edge Cloud, who was burning with rage, couldn't care less about that. He directly clashed with young Master Hai Long and Pei Xingqian, who were charging at him. Even though it was 1 against 2, he still held the upper hand and suppressed them. Edge Cloud's power was imaginable. Although the experts from the flourished Cloud Sea region tried their best to resist, there was no way to resist the joint assault of the experts from the two sea regions. They could only retreat in defeat. Just when they were in a desperate situation, a tyrannical aura suddenly rose into the sky, breaking the calm of the battlefield. Chapter 1042. Under the joint attack of the experts of the two sea regions, the experts of the flourished Cloud Sea region fell into a state of continuous defeat. Even if their strength had been enhanced with a large number of bloodstones over the past few days, they could not be compared with the experts of the two sea regions in terms of quantity. Almost from the beginning, the experts of the flourished Cloud Sea region were constantly retreating. This was also foreseeable. The experts of the flourished Cloud Sea region were indeed incomparable to the experts of the two sea regions. Whether in terms of quality or quantity, they were far inferior. Therefore, they pinned all their hopes on Yishiwen. At this time, only Yishiwen could reverse the situation. Just when they were completely in a desperate situation, a tyrannical aura rose straight into the sky, shattering the luck in the sky. A figure jumped out like a ghost. Swish! The figure turned into a stream of light and went straight to Edge Cloud. In that stream of light, a giant golden handprint suddenly stretched out, turning into a huge mountain range, and directly pressed down on Edge Cloud. Edge Cloud, who was fiercely pursuing young Master Sea Dragon and Pei Xingqian, suddenly felt the terrifying power contained in that mountain range. He suddenly retracted his long spear, and the spear broke through the vast sky, tearing the sky curtain, and met the attack in an instant. Boom! The mountain range was crushed, bursting into a violent light, sweeping out in circles. Edge Cloud's palm holding the spear trembled slightly, as if it had suffered a violent collision. Who is it? He roared and steadied his trembling hands. At this time, the golden light finally dissipated, revealing the figure within. A young man in a green shirt appeared in front of everyone. Yishiwen, you are out. Great! When Pei Xingqian saw that the person turned out to be Yishiwen, he immediately said with joy. In their opinion, Yishiwen was the key to reversing the situation in this battle. It was also the fundamental reason why they dared to stay in Flourished Cloud City despite knowing that Edge Cloud was about to return. Now, it seemed that Yishiwen did not let them down. Yishiwen stood with his hands behind his back, stepping on the endless golden waves under his feet. From a distance, he looked like a deity. He just looked at Bian Yun and said faintly, "Leave this place to me. You guys go and get rid of Zhou Sueki first." Although Yishiwen had just come out, he could see it clearly. The current situation of the Flourished Cloud Sea region looked dangerous. In fact, it was very simple to solve it. As long as he held Edge Cloud back, young Master Sea Dragon joined forces to kill Zhou Sueki. Then, the remaining Transcendent Realm warriors were nothing to worry about. Are you Yishiwen? Edge Cloud tilted his head and asked with a long spear in his hand. Yes. Yishiwen nodded. You killed my brother? Edge Cloud suppressed his anger and tried his best to pretend to be calm. That's right. Yishiwen replied calmly as if he was not tainted by the world of mortals. Good, good, good. Edge Cloud only said good 3 times. He was so angry that he didn't want to say anything else. Shwa! The long spear in his hand suddenly pierced out like a ghost, and instantly arrived in front of Yishiwen's face. Quick! 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 This spear simply exceeded his highest level. Under rage, his speed was simply fast to the extreme. The golden divine wave under Yishiwen's feet suddenly seemed to have a reaction. It jumped up, forming a golden divine curtain, and protected Yishiwen in it. Dang! The long spear pierced into the golden divine wave. The violent spear light crazily broke through the layer of golden divine curtain. The long spear penetrated nearly halfway, and finally stopped 3 inches in front of Yishiwen's face. The spear light that was spat out almost killed Yishiwen. However, Yishiwen was still very calm, without the slightest change. His hand did not stop, and he directly pinched another seal. It turned into the sky and the sea, and it blasted down. Inverted ocean seal. Edge Cloud had just experienced the power of the Hans seal. Naturally, he did not dare to underestimate this inverted ocean seal that seemed to be more powerful than the Hans seal. He directly pulled out the long spear, turned around, and stabbed with the spear. Boom! The entire inverted ocean seal was directly pierced, and a big hole was pierced, but his palm was also directly burst open. What a strong force! Edge Cloud was secretly shocked. This seal actually shattered his palm. It was conceivable how terrifying it was. Although his main cultivation direction was not the physical body, he had cultivated to the half-step law manifestation realm. Even if the physical body was his shortcoming, it had already reached a considerable level. The opponent was just a transcendent realm warrior. How could he not be shocked when he was able to shatter his palm? In the battle just now, although Yishiwen did not directly make a move, he was actually secretly estimating Edge Cloud's combat power. Edge Cloud was indeed much more tyrannical than Bien Rang. He had probably reached the half-step law manifestation initial peak. If it were Yishiwen a month ago, he would most likely be defeated facing Edge Cloud. But now it was different. In more than a month, Yishiwen naturally did not do nothing. He had absorbed more than 500,000 bloodstones. His cultivation had smoothly entered the Transcendent Realm's 7th level peak. He only needed an opportunity to enter the Transcendent Realm 8th level. He had entered the Transcendent Realm's 7th level peak a few days ago, but the reason why he hadn't come out of seclusion was to see if he could enter the Transcendent Realm 8th level. If he could enter the Transcendent Realm 8th level, then Fang Jingyun would be vulnerable. He would not be his opponent at all. Unfortunately, although he had been working hard and even sacrificed the Mingxin ancient tree to help, there was no way to enter the Transcendent Realm 8th level in the end. It might be because the opportunity had not arrived yet. However, even if he had not entered the Transcendent Realm 8th level, it was enough for Yishiwen. After figuring out Edge Cloud's strength, Yishiwen no longer hesitated. He immediately stomped his feet, and in the golden wave, a golden wave appeared. Yishiwen's whole body seemed to teleport, turning into a golden light and appearing in front of Edge Cloud in an instant. Every pore on his body was spewing out the power of the stars. Countless amounts of the power of the stars gathered on his arm, and transformed into a huge star. This star suddenly smashed down towards Edge Cloud. Boom! The star and Edge Cloud's long spear suddenly collided together, directly blasting out a terrifying collision. The world changed color. The blood-colored wave swept out in circles. How can this Yishiwen be so strong? Oh my god, am I seeing it right? How can this Yishiwen fight evenly with Edge Cloud? No wonder the Flourish Cloud Sea region's people are so confident that they can withstand Edge Cloud's offensive. It turns out that there is a terrifying existence like Yishiwen. We can't get close to the battlefield of the two at all. Otherwise, we will be torn into pieces by the aftermath. Boom! 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 Yishiwen's offensive was unceasingly launched, and all kinds of martial arts showed extraordinary might in his hands. He did not rigidly adhere to the ordinary martial arts routine, and any martial arts in his hands could shine brilliantly. In front of Yishiwen, Edge Cloud was constantly beaten back. Yishiwen was too strong. In front of his unparalleled strength that could even blow up mountains, Edge Cloud, who didn't specialize in body cultivation, could only continue to suffer losses. The terrifying power constantly bombarded his body through the long spear, making his hands tremble constantly. It was already dripping with blood, and the cracked wound was getting bigger and bigger. The other Taifeng Sea region people wanted to rescue, or rather, they wanted to join forces to deal with Yishiwen. However, they were held back by the Flourish Cloud Sea region's people. They knew very well that whether they could win or not depended on Yishiwen. How could they let others disturb him? On the other side, with the addition of Sea Dragon Young Master and Pei Xingchen, the pressure on Bai Hanmo suddenly decreased. The 3 half-step law manifestation realm experts joined forces. It was naturally countless times more tyrannical than when there was only Baihanmo. Under Baihanmo's man and fighting style, Zosweki, who had fallen into a complete disadvantage, was even more embarrassed at this time. In the face of the interception of 3 experts of the same realm, he had almost no other way but to constantly parry. In the eyes of outsiders, they even doubted how Zosweki obtained his prestige for so many years. He looked unreliable at all. At the beginning, he was completely suppressed by Baihanmo. Then, under the 3 people's attacks, he lost his sense of advance and retreat. There was no order to speak of. The grievance in his heart was imaginable. He didn't pay much attention to Baihanmo at the beginning, so Baihanmo took the initiative. He was completely suppressed by Baihanmo's man and fighting style, but he was only suppressed. In fact, Baihanmo's fighting style couldn't be sustained forever. As long as Baihanmo's chi ran out, he could easily defeat Baihanmo. Who knew that before Baihanmo's chi was exhausted, Yishiwen appeared out of nowhere, freeing Sea Dragon Young Master and Pei Xingqian to deal with him. Facing Baihanmo alone was enough of a headache. Now, he had to face Sea Dragon Young Master, who was almost not inferior to him, and the tyrannical Pei Xingqian. Yishiwen could defend until now, which already showed his tyrannical strength. If it were an ordinary person, he would have died in the hands of the 3 people. "No, I can't go on like this!" Zosweki kept roaring. He could see that if this continued, it would not take long for him to be defeated. On the other side, Edge Cloud couldn't be counted on at all. Under Yishiwen's offensive, Edge Cloud, who was defeated again and again, found it difficult to protect himself. How could he help Zosweki? The long spear in his hand burst into a terrifying light, deflecting the attacks of the 3 people in one fell swoop. Then, without hesitation, he turned around and fled. His figure turned into a stream of light and was about to escape. At this time, he had no time to care about others. It was good enough to protect himself. Chapter 1043. Want to leave? Just at the moment when he wanted to escape, Baihanmo had already noticed it. Baihanmo immediately rushed up. The white jade long sword burst out a terrifying sword light, cutting through the sky and earth, chasing after him. Damn it! Zosweki saw that Baihanmo's attack was the first to catch up. He was furious and quickly used his long spear to fend off the sword light's attack. Want to leave? At this time, Pei Xingqian and young Master Sea Dragon finally reacted. They chased after him, forming a triangle, surrounding him. It wasn't easy to defeat him. How could they let him escape? They all knew very well how difficult it was to kill a half-step law manifestation realm expert. They couldn't be like Yishiwen, slaughtering Bien Rang like slaughtering chickens and dogs. If this expert was released, it would be a future trouble. Once they had no one in the city, they might face great trouble. Just like the people in the Taifeng Sea region, they must not expect Yishiwen to suddenly come to them. As the saying goes, one can only be a thief for 1,000 days. How could one guard against a thief for 1,000 days? Seeing that he couldn't escape, Zosweki suddenly went berserk. Countless chi on his body swept out in circles, forming a violent storm. He went straight to Baihanmo. Damn it, it's all your fault! He hated Baihanmo to the core. If it weren't for Baihanmo, he wouldn't be entangled. He couldn't even escape. However, he had forgotten that if he didn't want to get involved in this matter, this wouldn't happen at all. The so-called consequences of greed were nothing more than this. Swish! The long spear cut through the sky, breaking all Baihanmo's defenses in an instant. The spear directly pierced into his lower abdomen. Baihanmo's lower abdomen burst out a burst of white jade-like light, but he still couldn't resist this violent spear. Puff! The long spear directly penetrated his lower abdomen, blasting a big hole in his lower abdomen. Ah! Baihanmo bit the blood stains. His eyes were red. At this time, with a loud shout, the white jade sword in his hand slashed out an amazing sword light. Zosweki was too close to Baihanmo. At this time, there was no way to avoid it. In other words, he did not expect that Bai Hanmo could trade injury for injury. In the case of being severely injured, Bai Hanmo could still unleash such a terrifying move. Pooh! The sword light slashed onto Zhou Sueki's body. Blood instantly splattered out, and bone fragments swirled in the air. He was severely injured on the spot, and a huge wound was directly torn open on his body. His whole body instantly flew backward. Die! At this moment, a bronze halberd pierced through the sky and directly penetrated Zhou Sueki's body. A large hole appeared in his chest, and his heart was instantly crushed into pieces. Zhou Sueki struggled unwillingly. His eyes were still filled with unwillingness, but there was nothing he could do. His life force had already been completely sucked out, and he died on the spot. Regardless of whether it was the experts from the two sides or the experts from the other sea regions who were watching from the outside of the city, they were all stunned by the scene in front of them. He had fallen! He had fallen! A half-step Transcendence Realm expert had fallen. To them, this was simply a deafening matter. Originally, they thought that the best result would be one side driving the other away. The casualties of the Transcendent Realm experts were not included, but it was extremely difficult to kill a half-step Transcendence Realm expert. After all, it was tainted with the word transcendence. Naturally, it was different. All of this seemed extremely incredible, but it seemed very reasonable. Although a half-step Transcendence Realm expert had fallen, there were 3 half-step Transcendence Realm initial experts besieging him. Young Master Sea Dragon's cultivation was not much worse than Zhou Sueki's. With the help of Pei Xingqian and Bai Hanmo, it was not surprising that they could kill him. It's finally done! Pei Xingqian panted heavily. The bronze halberd in his hand was still stained with Zhou Sueki's blood. They finally dealt with the opponent's half-step law manifestation realm master. At that time, even if Yishuan was defeated, the 4 of them could still stop Edge Cloud. It was equivalent to being in an invincible position. From the beginning, they had to resist Edge Cloud's attack. Compared with Zhou Sueki, Edge Cloud was truly terrifying and difficult to deal with. He and young Master Sea Dragon joined forces, but they were still defeated by Edge Cloud. No wonder Zhou Sueki would die in Edge Cloud's hands and had to withdraw from the flourishing Cloud City. Bai Hanmo on the side was grimacing in pain. Although he looked brave and fearless just now, if the spear's position was a little off, it could even penetrate his spine. At that time, he would be completely paralyzed for the rest of his life. However, as he continued to circulate his martial technique, the wounds on his body were constantly being healed at a lightning speed. Although it was not comparable to Yishuan's Phoenix regeneration technique, it was definitely an amazing martial technique for healing injuries. However, the 3 of them did not rest much. They directly began to pounce on the experts of the 2 sea regions. Under their attacks, the flourished Cloud Sea region's experts, who were at a disadvantage in numbers, retreated. They were almost helpless. Puff! The long halberd in Pei Xingqian's hand instantly pierced a Transcendent Realm 9th level expert. It was almost effortless. At this time, the experts of the 2 clans were afraid. They just remembered that although these people in front of them were constantly retreating in the hands of Edge Cloud, they were still experts of the half-step law manifestation realm. For them, it was simply a disaster when they attacked with all their strength. The outcome is decided! At this time, the people watching the battle inside and outside the city suddenly had this thought. The outcome was decided. The trio that defeated Zhou Sueki 1 step ahead of Edge Cloud could at least remain undefeated if they rushed to Yishuan's aid at this time. In other words, if Edge Cloud could not defeat Yishuan quickly, the outcome of this battle was already decided. Everyone was in a daze. They didn't expect that the final outcome would be like this. In the end, the flourished Cloud Sea region's experts that everyone was initially pessimistic about won. Even with 3 half-step transcendence experts, the flourished Cloud Sea region could not gain any advantage under the joint forces of the 2 sea regions. In front of Edge Cloud, young Master Sea Dragon and Pei Xingqian could only barely hold on. Bai Hanmo could only temporarily suppress Zhou Sueki. If the battle continued, it would only end in a crushing defeat. Moreover, the flourished Cloud Sea region did not have any advantage in the battles of the Transcendent Realm experts. From all aspects, the flourished Cloud Sea region was not far from defeat. After the appearance of one person, the situation immediately reversed. It was Yi Shiwen. From the beginning of his appearance, the flourished Cloud Sea region immediately reversed the passive situation on the battlefield. The entire rhythm began to reverse in favor of the flourished Cloud Sea region. The fundamental premise for the flourished Cloud Sea region to reverse everything was that Yi Shiwen could block Edge Cloud so that he could have a way to intervene. After witnessing such a huge battle, everyone finally understood how important a top-notch expert was to the entire team. Because of Edge Cloud's existence, the Taifeng Sea region could dominate the other sea regions. Because of Yi Shiwen's existence, the flourished Cloud Sea region could turn the tables in a disadvantageous situation. With such an expert, it would be worth tens of millions of others. At this time, the battle between Yi Shiwen and Edge Cloud had also entered a white-hot stage. Under Yi Shiwen's powerful offensive, Edge Cloud could only continue to resist. Yi Shiwen's strength was too great. The result of being led by Yi Shiwen was that Edge Cloud could only passively receive Yi Shiwen's moves. "You are not my opponent! Hurry up and surrender!" Yi Shiwen sneered. His first move was a killer move. The earth-level sword that was seized appeared in his hand. The sword aura filled the world, and the endless sword aura raged in the air, sweeping across. He was like a god of swordsmanship. A casual sword could have great power. In this case, Edge Cloud just kept retreating. The depression in his heart almost made him vomit blood. He had never encountered such a strange opponent. It wasn't that he hadn't encountered an opponent with incomparably powerful strength. However, such an opponent's speed was also very slow. So, he didn't have to worry about them. However, he had never heard of an opponent like Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's attack was extremely powerful, and his speed was extremely fast. "Damn it, you forced me out! You will regret it!" Edge Cloud wasn't a benevolent person either. Layers of snow-white scales suddenly appeared on his body. His body suddenly grew to twice its original size. Looking at it, his nearly 4-meter-tall body looked abnormally oppressive. Looking at him now, he looked like a white-scaled monster. Swish! His figure moved, and he suddenly stepped on the ground. Suddenly he stepped on a group of ice spots. In an instant, he had already rushed in front of Yi Shiwen. His speed was extremely fast. Compared to just now, there was a tremendous change. Wherever he passed, Yi Shiwen's sword aura was instantly torn apart. It could not break his white scales at all. "Go to hell!" Edge Cloud shouted. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist, and directly blasted out a terrifying fist energy. It swept out a huge tornado, and instantly blasted at Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen's reaction was not slow. The long sword suddenly slashed out. A brilliant sword light broke through the sky, and instantly slashed on Edge Cloud's fist. Dang! Yi Shiwen's long sword couldn't cut through his scales. It could only leave a mark on his scales. Moreover, this mark disappeared very quickly as if it had never appeared. Yi Shiwen's long sword couldn't cut through his scales. The defensive power of his snow-white scales could be said to be astonishing. "You are the first person who can force me to this step. You should be proud to die in my hands," Edge Cloud said in a cold voice. Chapter 1044. Edge Cloud looked exceptionally terrifying. He was like a humanoid white-armored monster. The imposing aura on his body was constantly surging up. Whether it was the people who wanted to help Yi Shiwen or the people who wanted to help Edge Cloud, they simply couldn't get close to the battlefield of these two people. Even Pei Xingqian, young Master Sea Dragon, and Bai Hanmo were the same. They could deeply feel that although they were all half-step law manifestation realm experts, these two were far more powerful than them. If it was just Edge Cloud, it would be fine. Although Edge Cloud was powerful, he could still be seen and touched. There might be a gap between them and Edge Cloud, but it was only a gap of accumulation. If they were given enough time, they might be able to catch up with Edge Cloud in the future, and even surpass him. They were the strongest realm in the flourished Cloud Sea region for tens of thousands of years. Their strength far exceeded any of the young experts in the flourished Cloud Sea region. Naturally, they had such pride and confidence. They weren't any worse than Edge Cloud and the others. The only difference was the previous gap. However, after entering the blood world, all the gaps could be overcome in a short period of time. It was nothing at all. What really made them feel a little desperate and powerless was Yishiwen. He was only at Transcendent Realm's 7th level, but he could already kill half-step law manifestation realm initial experts. When he reached half-step law manifestation realm initial, it was unimaginable how powerful he would be. And the speed would definitely exceed their imagination. After all, the breakthrough of Transcendent Realm was much easier than the half-step Law Manifestation Realm, or even Law Manifestation Realm. But fortunately, such a person was not an enemy but on their side. What kind of bloodline does Edge Cloud have? It's so terrifying. He can actually resist the attack of an Earth-level martial instrument. It's unimaginable. I don't know. The bloodline of Bien Yun and Bien Rang is very mysterious. They belong to a very mysterious clan in the Sea Clan. However, their number is very small. Their ancestors even have the bloodline of a giant beast from ancient times. However, that is only a legend. In fact, not many people can activate the bloodline. Because of this, that clan has always been unknown in Taifeng Sea region. But in this generation, Bien Yun was able to activate the bloodline. This made him stand out all of a sudden. He is an outstanding person among the younger generation of Taifeng Sea region. Once his bloodline is successfully stimulated, his strength will simply undergo a tremendous change. His strength will multiply, and he will even be able to fight beyond his realm. How terrifying! Seeing Edge Cloud, who had turned into a humanoid-scaled monster, everyone was shocked. Edge Cloud had too many trump cards that he hadn't revealed. If it wasn't for this day, how could he have revealed them all? However, everyone looked at Yishiwen with even more fear in their eyes. Because even such a terrifying expert like Edge Cloud was forced into a corner by him. If Edge Cloud was a terrifying monster, then Yishiwen was probably a creature that was even more terrifying than a monster. After Edge Cloud activated the bloodline, the chi in his whole body skyrocketed. He was not like a human at all, but a vicious beast. A vicious beast that came out of ancient times. It seemed that even his mind was faintly affected by the bloodline. He began to become cruel and bloodthirsty. Yishiwen narrowed his eyes and frowned slightly. He had the most experience with the influence of this vicious beast's bloodline. Because his body was also integrated with the Star Beast's bloodline. The Star Beast's bloodline would always affect his mind, making him more cruel and bloodthirsty than before. In fact, Yemo had already told him about the cultivation technique. However, he still chose to devour the Star Beast's bloodline without hesitation. On the one hand, there was the Mingxin ancient tree to keep watch. So, he did not have to worry about being affected by the Star Beast's bloodline too much. He could calmly judge the situation. On the other hand, it was also because of the Tyrant Body scripture. This Tyrant Body scripture was more overbearing than he imagined. It couldn't tolerate other existences. Even the Golden Body could only exist by relying on the Tyrant Body and integrate into the Tyrant Body. The same was true for the Star Beast's bloodline. In the case where the Tyrant Body was the dominant force, even the violent bloodline of the Star Beast could only surrender to the Tyrant Body and slowly integrate into the Tyrant Body. It could only be regarded as a function derived from the Tyrant Body, and it wouldn't affect the purity of the Tyrant Body. Every time Edge Cloud took a step forward, the scales on his body constantly opened and closed. After devouring a lot of blood energy, his whole body faintly turned a little blood red. It was even more terrifying. It seemed that some of the invisible forces in the entire blood world were controlled by him. At this moment, he was really like a humanoid vicious beast that had awakened from ancient times. If one looked closely at his white scales, there were also countless laws and runes engraved on them. They were constantly absorbing the power between heaven and earth for his use. His power was getting stronger and stronger. A blood-colored storm was faintly formed around his body. Countless blood energy was naturally absorbed by him. It was very terrifying. Yishuan's eyes were bloodshot. He simply abandoned the long spear and returned to the wild summoning state. His hands turned into claws and suddenly tore apart the entire world. It seemed as if a huge hole had been torn open by him. A terrifying crack quickly swept towards Yishuan. It seemed as if it would tear his entire body into two halves. Yishuan's expression didn't change at all, as if he didn't see this terrifying attack sweeping towards him. Suddenly, his hands glowed with golden light, as if he had turned stone into gold. He lifted it suddenly and tore it out directly. Swoosh! The entire sky seemed to be torn apart. Countless blood energy was instantly grabbed away, and a huge vacuum appeared. The terrifying golden light covered the sky and grabbed towards the opening. The opening was actually torn open by him. Then, he tore it out as if he was tearing a piece of cloth. You still don't understand the real gap between you and me. Yishuan's voice was cold, like an ice-cold god. Damn, you want to resist me with just this. Edge Cloud's remaining rationality made him roar continuously. The breath that he exhaled turned into a storm, shaking in all directions. He suddenly stepped on his feet and turned into countless laws. In an instant, a large amount of blood energy collapsed, and the space was distorted. He began to display the secret technique of his clan. Countless strange laws began to condense in a frenzy. This was a secret technique that could only be used after activating the bloodline. Because this clan had been in decline for a long time, very few people knew about this secret technique. However, the power of this secret technique could be imagined. Swoosh! A terrifying white light appeared on his hands. A punch penetrated the vast sky, tore the sky curtain, and blasted in front of Yishuan like lightning. Is this the secret technique of his clan? Yishuan sneered. However, he didn't stay in the same place and take a beating. He suddenly stepped on the ground, and a golden wave appeared on the ground. Then, he dodged this punch which was capable of blasting through the heaven and earth. Yishuan, kill this man! Yimo's voice suddenly appeared in Yishuan's mind. There was a bit of excitement in his tone. His bloodline is very noble. It's a giant beast from ancient times. If Tianyuan Mirror can absorb it, it can immediately be promoted to a human-level peak martial instrument. Yimo's words suddenly made Yishuan's heart move. If Yimo wanted to upgrade now, although he could absorb Edge Cloud's blood essence, it would take a long time to complete the upgrade. Yishuan didn't expect Edge Cloud's bloodline to be so strong that Tianyuan Mirror could upgrade at once. Do you want to know how I defeated your brother? Yishuan's loud voice appeared in the air. Since he had decided to kill Edge Cloud, it was better to do it sooner rather than later. At this time, the battles in other places had already ended. Under the leadership of Pei Xingchen, young Master Hailong, and by Hanmo, the three half-step law manifestation realm experts, the experts of Taifeng Sea region and Feng Shui Sea region were simply vulnerable. The three were like tigers entering a flock of sheep. Soon, these people were slaughtered. With three half-step law manifestation realm experts taking the lead, naturally, no one could escape. All were killed here. The two sea domains could have been the hegemon of this region, but they had suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of Yishuan. Perhaps, they had never suffered such a serious loss in their entire history. They had been completely annihilated. But this was the cruelest law in the blood world. Geniuses were like poisonous insects, using their blood to practice. Buried person's sword. Buried earth's sword. Buried heaven's sword. Yishuan waved three sword lights in the sky. For a time, heaven and earth mourned together as if the whole world was about to be destroyed. It was a kind of chilling fluctuation. Under Yishuan's control, these three sword lights condensed together in the sky, condensing into a terrifying light sword. Edge Cloud's pupils shrank frantically. The sense of danger brought by the terrifying sword aura stimulated his reason and made him completely awake. But at this time, it was too late. Yishuan, who was going all out, once again used 3 swords into one. It was enough to seriously injure Bian Rang previously, but now Yishuan was supplemented with the Earth-grade martial instrument. The power was so great that it was incomparable to the previous battle with Bian Rang. Yishuan finally moved. The huge light sword above his head suddenly blasted out under his command. This huge light sword instantly broke through the vast sky, shattering all the blood clouds between heaven and earth. The world suddenly seemed to be silent. Everyone couldn't hear any sound. They could only see this spectacular and brilliant scene. At this time, Edge Cloud crazily increased the Jinqi in his body to resist this terrifying sword, but this light sword was simply invincible. It destroyed all his defenses and pierced through him in one strike. Blood splashed out and scattered in the sky. Chapter 1045. All the sounds between heaven and earth disappeared. Everyone could only see this scene. They could only see that Edge Cloud was pierced by Yishuan's sword. The white scale armor that he was proud of could not withstand Yishuan's terrifying blow at all. The piercing light sword devoured all of his life force and crushed all of his hope. Amidst this white light, a bloody light swept past and swept Edge Cloud inside. It was Yemo who had taken action. When no one had noticed, he had taken Edge Cloud away. With the death of Edge Cloud, this battle of life and death that concerned the 3 major sea regions finally came to an end. In the end, the flourished Cloud Sea region, which many people were optimistic about before the battle, won a complete victory. Moreover, they didn't just chase them away. Instead, they made all of them stay behind. The 2 sea regions clearly had a fundamental advantage when it came to ordinary experts. However, when it came to top-notch experts, they suffered a crushing defeat, which led to their miserable deaths. This made these people deeply understand a principle. In this world where the weak were prey to the strong, unless there was a terrifying number of people, it would be useless. In the face of these terrifying experts from the flourished Cloud Sea region, it was useless no matter how many people they had. For a time, those who were still restless and had ulterior motives settled down at once. They knew that if they did not settle down at this time, they would be cruelly suppressed. The current flourished Cloud Sea region was different from before. It could be said that there were no strong enemies on the outside, and there were 4 half-step law manifestation experts on the inside. They could easily suppress all rebellions. They did not want to test the law. Compared with the masters of the major sea regions who had complicated thoughts, the masters of the flourished Cloud Sea region were overjoyed all of a sudden. Initially, they had been on tenterhooks. They might be killed by the furious Edge Cloud at any time, but since they had already done it, they could only board Yishuan's pirate ship. Who knew that the result was completely beyond their expectations? Yishuan was more tyrannical than they thought. He eradicated the masters of the 2 major sea regions in one fell swoop instead of driving them away. In other words, it was equivalent to eradicating future troubles, so that they had no worries and did not have to worry about possible revenge at any time. Now that they occupied the entire flourished Cloud City, they could enjoy the benefits of flourished Cloud City's development. Their cultivation would also rise steadily. Even stepping into the half-step law manifestation realm would not be a dream. Was seeking a breakthrough and not fighting the fundamental purpose of coming to the blood world? It was naturally the best if they could achieve it now. Young Master Sea Dragon and others finally breathed a sigh of relief. During this time, the pressure in their hearts was much greater than most people's. It was precisely because they were stronger that they knew Edge Cloud's strength. Now that they finally saw Edge Cloud die tragically, they could finally breathe a sigh of relief. They also took this opportunity to establish the supreme prestige of the flourished Cloud Sea region. They wanted to see how many people dared to play tricks in the dark. In a courtyard in flourished Cloud City, Yishuan paced slowly in the middle of the courtyard. The surroundings were quiet, and no one dared to disturb Yishiwen at this time. It had been a full 3 days since Yishiwen beheaded Edge Cloud. The entire flourishing Cloud City had restored its original order. Without the threat of Edge Cloud, the people in flourishing Cloud City had settled down. Everyone finally began to settle down. Many people began to go out of the city to explore the blood world, looking for fortuitous encounters, or stay in the city to condense the bloodstone, and then cultivate. Since the entire flourished Cloud City was on the right track, young Master Sea Dragon and others also began to enter close cultivation again. This time, they killed a large number of experts from the Feng Shui Sea region and the Tai Feng Sea region, seizing more than 2 million bloodstones. Of which, 1 million was unanimously requested by everyone to be distributed to Yishiwen. They were all very clear that this time, they could survive, kill all the experts from the 2 sea regions, and monopolize the flourished Cloud Sea region. Who was it that they relied on? It was none other than Yishiwen. Compared to them, Yishiwen was the foundation. With Yishiwen's strength, he could pull up a team and rebuild a city at any time. It would be impolite to refuse Yishiwen because he really needed these bloodstones. Although his combat power was extraordinary and could behead half-step law manifestation realm peak initial experts, because of this, his consumption was much higher than ordinary people. Even if he just wanted to enter the Transcendent Realm 8th level, he would need to consume a massive amount of bloodstones. Not to mention the subsequent cultivation, even to cultivate to the half-step law manifestation realm. The bloodstones needed were an astronomical amount of wealth for others. This was also the price Yishiwen had to pay to maintain the combat power of leapfrogging realms. However, even if there were only 1 million left, it was still a huge amount of wealth for them. Their combat power was not as good as Yishiwen, so naturally, they did not need to consume so much. After obtaining these wealth, they quickly began close cultivation. Yishiwen had also seized a lot from Bian Yun's body. Bian Yun was the original leader of the Tai Feng Sea area. He had occupied the entire flourishing Cloud City. Although the wealth on his body wasn't as much as the treasury, it was still more than 500,000. In other words, Yishiwen now had more than 2 million bloodstones in addition to the original 500,000. To the current blood world, this amount of wealth was definitely a huge sum of money. Yishiwen couldn't help but sigh in his heart. In comparison, the leaders of these big forces were extremely wealthy. Especially for someone like him who didn't need to worry about the development of the entire force. So, he was extremely wealthy. 2 million bloodstones were enough for him to cultivate for a long time. Yishiwen, who originally planned to leave, now decided to stay and entered the Transcendent Realm 8th level first. Although flourishing Cloud City was good and stable, it was his world. For Yishiwen, it was not an ideal place to improve his strength. His martial arts could only be improved by constant experience, encountering stronger experts, and defeating stronger experts. In this flourishing Cloud City, his combat power was already top-notch. It was not that he could not improve, but the extent of improvement would definitely be greatly reduced. Jian Wushuang also considered this point, which was why he left. To some extent, Jian Wushuang and Yishiwen were the same type of people. They were completely different from Sea Dragon Master and the others. They had to take care of their families and disciples from their respective forces, so they couldn't be completely free. Only Yishiwen and Jian Wushuang were alone and could leave at any time. This was Yishiwen's disadvantage, but at this time, it also became his advantage. He could be free. However, now that he had enough bloodstones, he wasn't in a hurry to leave the blood world as soon as possible. The blood world was vast and boundless. And the deeper he went, the more dangerous it would be. And the more experts there would be. His current strength might be enough to dominate the periphery of the blood world. However, there would be many experts who would be above him once he entered the depths of the blood world. The danger was unpredictable. Instead of that, it was better to improve his strength first, and then consider leaving. Anyway, he was not in a rush to leave. It was just that all his energy was now focused on the map he held in his hand. Yishiwen didn't know what year this ancient map was from, but it was precisely the one he had seized from Bian Yun's body. In addition to the more than 500,000 bloodstones and a large number of spirit crystals on Bian Yun, only this map caught Yishiwen's attention. "What is the place marked on this map?" Yishiwen frowned and looked at the place marked on the antique map. He was completely unfamiliar with the Blood Realm, so he couldn't tell what place it was at all. Unfortunately, he didn't know the existence of this map. Otherwise, he would have caught Bian Yun first and checked his memory with the soul-searching technique. But now that he was dead, he naturally couldn't check his memory. However, he only knew that since it was a map that Bian Yun wanted to stay by his side until he died, it must be a very important map. Although he didn't know where he got it from, it was not important now. "This must be a treasure map." Yi Mo's silhouette appeared and stood on Yishiwen's shoulder. He pointed at the map and said, "There are many arrows here. I think that the last arrow is pointing at the place where the treasures are hidden." Because after absorbing Bian Yun's blood essence, Tianyuan Mirror was promoted to the top human-level martial instrument faster than originally expected, and Yi Mo could finally be released. Yishiwen nodded and somewhat agreed with Yi Mo's judgment. Anyway, at this time, he didn't know what place this treasure map was pointing to. "Wait a minute, look! Doesn't this mountain look like the mountain that we passed by before coming to this flourishing cloud city?" Yishiwen suddenly pointed at the map and said. Although for many people, each mountain seemed to be more or less the same, for a top master like Yishiwen, his eyes were like a scanner. At a glance, even if there were only some subtle differences, he could easily see it. It was impossible to hide from his eyes. If he found a similarity, then it was 100% true. Yes, it's this mountain range." Yi Mo's eyes suddenly lit up. His reaction was also very fast, and he immediately reacted. "There is a clue." "Haha, it's great that there is a clue now. I'm afraid that there is no clue at all." Although there was only a little clue, as long as there was a clue and he followed the map, he could always find the point drawn on the map. After finding the clue, Yishiwen was in a good mood. He decided not to waste time and directly entered the state of close cultivation. When he broke through to Transcendent Realm 8th level, he would leave this place. A true dragon couldn't be bred in shallow waters. He needed a wider sky. Chapter 1046. After confirming this point, Yishiwen didn't hesitate, and immediately entered the state of closed-door training. Currently, several young experts in Flourishing Cloud City had basically entered the state of closed-door training, striving for a breakthrough. Especially Jing Wuyuan, the princess, Boundless Sea, and a few other geniuses who hadn't yet stepped into the half-step law manifestation realm. When they were outside, although there was still some gap between them, they were basically considered to be at the same level. Now, they were left behind by young Master Sea Dragon and the other two. How could they not be anxious? One must know that even though they were allies in the Blood World, they were still opponents after leaving the Blood World. Especially since the Blood World's trial might not last for a long time, but as opponents, it would last for many years. At this time, they naturally could not allow themselves to fall behind these people too much. Now, naturally, no one came to disturb Yishiwen's close cultivation. Time passed calmly as everyone was in close cultivation. As more and more places were explored, more and more people found treasures of demons or had some adventures. The entire Flourishing Cloud City began to gradually prosper. Some people would take out the treasures they obtained and auction them off, increasing the vitality of the entire city a lot. These greatly increased the tax revenue of Flourishing Cloud City, and eventually fell into the hands of everyone in the Flourishing Cloud Sea region. Even so, no one in the major sea regions dared to be dissatisfied. It was not only because Yishiwen and the others had successfully defeated Edge Cloud, which gave everyone a great shock. More importantly, the half-step law manifestation realm masters of the Flourishing Cloud Sea region did not stop occasionally. Half a month after Edge Cloud was killed, Jing Wuhui, who was originally only a little bit away from entering the half-step law manifestation realm, successfully entered the half-step law manifestation realm and became another powerful half-step law manifestation realm master in flourishing Cloud City. After another half a month, another master broke into the half-step law manifestation realm. It was none other than the elder brother of the high siblings, Boundless Sea. After another month, Princess and Boundless Sea had entered the half-step law manifestation realm one after another. In the following month, another expert entered the half-step into the transcendence realm. However, no one expected this person to be Yao Qian, who could barely squeeze into the top 20 previously. This time, she was ahead of everyone else. After Princess and Hai Wuyo, she became another female giant in the half-step into the transcendence realm. In these 3 months, although there were 2 experts from other sea regions who entered the half-step law manifestation realm after a fortuitous encounter, they were nothing compared to the 9 half-step law manifestation realm experts in the flourished Cloud Sea region. Even these 2 half-step law manifestation realm experts could only be obedient people and did not dare to cause any trouble. Otherwise, they would be cruelly suppressed. Whether it was the strength or the number of experts, the flourished Cloud Sea region was far above the major sea regions. After a few months, the flourished Cloud Sea region had successfully established its prestige and established its rule in this area. There was no doubt that with the passage of time, more and more experts in the flourished Cloud Sea region would enter the half-step law manifestation realm. As the flourished Cloud Sea region that controlled the entire flourished Cloud City, its cultivation realm was naturally far from what other sea regions could match. Unless there was an unexpected factor like Yishiwen, it would be difficult to shake them. Many people exclaimed secretly, "What is going on with the flourished Cloud Sea region this time? Is it really time for them to rebound from the bottom and erupt all of a sudden with so many geniuses emerging all of a sudden?" There was no need to mention Yishiwen. Others like Sea Dragon Young Master, and the others were also top-notch Heaven's Pride experts in other sea domains. In middle-level sea domains, their innate talents were also top-notch. They were not much worse than them. In fact, although there was a certain gap in cultivation between the geniuses of the major sea regions, most of the time, this was caused by the resources of the major forces in the major sea regions. There might not be such a big gap between their talents. It was even possible that the talents of people from small sea regions were far superior to those from middle-sized and large sea regions. The Blood World Trial was an opportunity, a chance to shorten the gap between them. In the Blood World, blood qi that could promote cultivation could be seen everywhere. To some extent, it could also shorten the gap between them in terms of resources, allowing people from small sea regions to have a chance to catch up with experts from other sea regions. Generally speaking, the talents of people from large sea regions were far better than those from other sea regions. It was already extremely amazing for people from small sea regions to have a genius. But the flourished Cloud Sea region had so many geniuses in one breath. The experts from other sea regions could not help but exclaim secretly. There were so many Heaven's Pride experts. Apart from the lack of top experts, they were probably already comparable to a medium-sized sea region. After a period of time, Yishiwen, Young Master Sea Dragon, and the others would grow up. Then, they would truly be comparable to a medium-sized sea region. This was something that even the Taifeng Sea region could not achieve. But the flourished Cloud Sea region did it. Just like that, 3 months passed amidst the slight turbulence and calmness. During these 3 months, the flourished Cloud Sea region's high-level officials did not show up, but they managed the flourished Cloud City in an orderly manner. But on this day, these high-level officials of the flourished Cloud Sea region, which was rarely seen on weekdays, suddenly gathered in front of a small courtyard. This small courtyard was the small courtyard where Yishiwen was. Today, everyone gathered here for one reason, which was to wait for Yishiwen to come out from his closed-door cultivation. Everyone present was a half-step law manifestation expert. Those who had not reached the half-step law manifestation realm were not even qualified to join this small group. In a sense, except for Baihanmo, who was not from this sea region at all, the others were the powerhouses who would live in the entire flourished Cloud Sea region for thousands of years in the future. Among these people, The strongest was naturally young Master Hailong, who had a calm and experienced aura. The weakest was Yao Qian, who had just stepped into the half-step transcendence realm. However, it was already surprising that she could step into the half-step transcendence realm before so many people. These people would inevitably be wary of each other and probe each other's strength. But today, they gathered here not only because Yishiwen was about to come out from his closed-door cultivation, but also because Yishiwen was about to leave. Before the closed-door cultivation, Yishiwen had already informed them that after he came out, he would leave the operations center and go to the depths of the blood realm. Today was not so much to say that they were waiting for him to come out from his closed-door cultivation, but it was more of a farewell for him. For Yishiwen, everyone's feelings were extremely complicated. There were people like Bai Hanmo, Yao Qian, Pei Xingqian, and others who had a good relationship with him. There were also people like Jing Wuyuan, Hai Wuyo, the Boundless Sea siblings, and so on. But no matter what their feelings were, there was one point. Without Yishiwen, there would be no flourishing Cloud City that they controlled today. Without flourishing Cloud City, although they could still step into the half-step law manifestation realm, this time would definitely be delayed by an unknown amount of time. With the help of flourishing Cloud City, it could save them a lot of time. This was a situation that they had never thought of, even the best-case scenario. And who brought all of this was naturally Yishiwen. If Yishiwen did not kill the two brothers, Bian Rang and Bian Yun, how could they have the opportunity to control the entire flourishing Cloud City? They could even step into the half-step law manifestation realm. Now that Yishiwen was leaving, it was reasonable for them to send him off. They were very clear about Yishiwen's choice. They also knew that Yishiwen was right to make a fundamental leap in the blood realm. It was just that they knew he was right, but there was no way to imitate him. Compared to Yishiwen, they were burdened with their families. There were still many people behind them who needed them to lead. If they all left, then flourishing Cloud City would soon be subverted. At the very least, they had to wait until another batch of half-step law manifestation realm experts appeared in addition to them. Only then would they feel at ease to explore the outside world. AI, Brother Yi is leaving again. Every time we meet, it won't be long. He is leaving. Bai Hanmo sighed and said. Yishiwen and he were very congenial. Although the time they met each time was extremely short, the relationship between them was excellent. Yao Qian's pretty face was a little gloomy. She felt a little strange in her heart. She opened her mouth, but in the end, she did not say anything. He was destined to not belong to one place. For an eagle, the vast sky was the place where he should soar. She made a decision in her heart, a decision that she had put aside for a long time. Now, don't be sad, kid. If we are fated, we will meet again sooner or later. Pei Xingqian patted his shoulder and said. Compared with others, he had a deeper feeling. Previously, Gui Yuan's sect stood against the opinions of the masses. They would rather fall out with the vanishing shadow poisonous crocodile clan and poisonous flaming dragon clan to protect Yishiwen. Perhaps not many people could understand at that time, but everyone understood now. As for the people and forces present, hadn't they all received great grace from him? Everyone fell into silence again. Even Bai Hanmo and Pei Xingqian, who had always been talkative, did not speak much. The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became silent. Time passed by minute. Just when everyone began to feel a little impatient in their hearts, secretly thinking that the time of exiting was not wrong, the courtyard door was pushed open with a creak. A cyan figure walked out from inside, but he said something nonsensical. The sun is good today. Good morning, everyone. Everyone was a little speechless, but they also threw the slightly heavy feeling into the sky and disappeared completely. Chapter 1047. In the vast and boundless blood world, the chaotic clouds pierced through the sky, and the wind blew the sand, setting off a bloody smell. The bloody smell permeated the air. Vaguely, there was a bloody smell. Although it was very faint, it did exist. On a mountain range in the Blood World, Yishiwen stood on the peak and looked into the distance. In the Blood World, everything seemed to be embedded with this bloody smell. Even in the mountain range, it was red. These stones were like the spirit stones in the outside world. They were formed in this way. In this blood-red world, he had already gotten used to it. He had left Flourishing Cloud City for more than half a day. In order to find the buried treasure point on the map, he came to this mountain range that he had been to before. After careful comparison, it was exactly the same as the picture on the treasure map. He had seen Shuaishan before, so naturally, he wouldn't mistake him for someone else. After practicing martial arts, having a photographic memory was one of the greatest benefits. In other words, practicing martial arts was a process that stimulated the various potentials of a person. As for combat, it was just an accessory to this process. Through practicing martial arts, one could reach a realm that was impossible to reach in the past. The ultimate goal was to become a god from a human. For him, the entire blood world was very strange. Even if he left Flourishing Cloud City, he did not know where to go in this blood world. He only knew that he had to go to the depths of the blood world, where there would be stronger masters. The treasure point shown on this map was also in the depths of the blood world, which coincided with his direction. Thinking of this, he did not hesitate and moved forward according to the marked point on this map. After confirming this, he didn't hesitate at all. He took a step forward and disappeared into the horizon. Although the ultimate goal was the treasure map and his route had been in that direction, in fact, Yishiwen's speed was neither fast nor slow. Along the way, he also encountered many blood fiends. Some even appeared in groups, but they were completely beheaded by Yishiwen and finally absorbed by Tianyuan Mirror. Although it had stepped into the peak of the human level, for Tianyuan Mirror, it was just the beginning. It was still far away. Now Yemo was also going all out to make the entire Tianyuan Mirror step into the Earth grade level. If Tianyuan Mirror could step into the Earth grade level, then the entire power of the mirror would have a tremendous change, and this was exactly what Yishiwen wanted. Yishiwen had reached the Transcendent Realm 8th level. His combat prowess had already reached the half-step law manifestation intermediate. Although these blood beasts were ferocious, they could not pose any actual threat to him. In the end, they could only die tragically in his hands. Yishiwen's Transcendent Realm 8th level realm had also slowly consolidated in these massacres. During this period of time, he had also obtained quite a number of heavenly treasures, all of which could not be seen in the outside world, and could only be born in a special environment like the blood world. After traveling in this manner for another half a month, a huge city appeared in front of Yishiwen. This was a city completely shrouded in clouds and mist. In these clouds and mist, bolts of lightning constantly slid down from the sky. It was as if he had come to a sea of lightning. He came to the gathering place of another city. Compared to the Flourishing Cloud City, the scale of this city was at least 10 times that of the Flourishing Cloud City. The experts coming and going were also far stronger than the experts of the Flourishing Cloud City by more than a notch. Yishiwen was already out of the Flourished Cloud City's range. Judging from the information collected by the Flourished Cloud Sea region, this city should be Sky Thunder City. Sky Thunder City belonged to a medium-sized sea region called Sky Thunder Sea region in the Endless Sea region. This was a genuine medium-sized sea region. It was different from the Typhoon Sea region, which was a step away from becoming a medium-sized sea region. Its strength was much more tyrannical. The scale of Sky Thunder City alone was far above the Flourished Cloud City. It was 10 times the size of the Flourished Cloud Sea region. It was said that the Sky Thunder Sea region was shrouded in thunder and lightning all year round. Therefore, the people in the Sky Thunder Sea region often carried the momentum of thunder and lightning. They were experts in using thunder techniques. The environment of Sky Thunder City was said to be modified by the experts of the Sky Thunder Sea region generation after generation. The people in the Sky Thunder Sea region who were good at using thunder techniques would have their combat strength doubled. Other sea region experts who were not good at using thunder techniques would be suppressed when they entered. Compared with Sky Thunder City, the flourished Cloud City could only be regarded as a rural place. Not only was the population far less than Sky Thunder City, but the city's defense could not be modified with such great fanfare as in the Sky Thunder Sea region. At most, it was hastily reinforced. There was no way to compare with the meticulously prepared Sky Thunder City. The tyrannical strength of a medium-sized sea region was incomparable to that of a small sea region. It could even be said that the strength of a medium-sized sea region was several times the comprehensive strength of a small sea region. This was why the Typhoon Sea region had provoked the flourished Cloud Sea region many times, and the flourished Cloud Sea region could only swallow their anger. The difference in strength between the two sides was really too great. The Typhoon Sea region had been coveting the flourished Cloud Sea region for a long time. What they lacked was a reason to make a move. Would the flourished Cloud Sea region send this reason? It could not be helped that they were inferior to the flourished Cloud Sea region. The Sky Lightning Sea region was one of the older middle-sized sea regions. In terms of strength, it was much stronger than the Typhoon Sea region. In fact, it could be said to be a top-notch colossus among the middle-sized sea regions. It had the ability to attack large sea regions. The specific embodiment of Sky Thunder Sea region's strength in the Blood Realm was this city that was more than 10 times larger than the flourished Cloud City. The experts coming and going were all young Transcendent Realm 9th level elites. Only a few were Transcendent Realm 7th level or 8th level warriors. This was completely different from the cities built in those small sea regions. The cities built in those small sea regions were like the flourished Cloud Sea region in the past. Occasionally, there would be 1 or 2 Transcendent Realm 9th level experts, and the rest were Transcendent Realm 8th level and 7th level experts. It was conceivable that the strength of Sky Thunder Sea region was far beyond his imagination. Thinking of this, Yishiwen was a little excited. If Sky Thunder Sea region was like this, then how many experts would there be in those large sea regions and super sea regions? This trip to the Blood Realm would not be in vain. However, Yishiwen noticed one thing. Among the warriors coming and going, they were all sea clans. There was not a single human. At this time, Yishiwen remembered that the information provided by the flourished Cloud Sea region mentioned that Sky Thunder Sea region was the same as Typhoon Sea region. They were extremely resistant to the entry of human clans. Typhoon Sea region had just recently expelled the existence of human clans and destroyed the human forces. On the other hand, Sky Thunder Sea region had uprooted and slaughtered the human clans many years ago. That battle resulted in rivers of blood. Hundreds of millions of human clans' corpses floated in the sea region. Most importantly, the sea clans in Sky Thunder Sea region had planned this for a long time. They wiped out the human clans in one fell swoop, not giving them any time to react at all. So, in that battle, the total number of human clans who escaped was less than 100,000. Compared with the billions of humans living in Sky Thunder Sea region at that time, this number was insignificant. Sky Thunder Sea region became famous after that battle. Yishiwen frowned slightly, revealing a look of disgust. However, he did not stop. He operated the restraining breath technique and directly changed his aura into the Sea Clan's aura. For the current Yishiwen, this was not difficult at all. As for his appearance, he didn't change at all. However, this didn't matter. Not all members of the sea race were covered in scales. There were many who only had a few scales. These were the nobler members of the sea race. Not only in the true martial domain, but even in the ancient Barrens continent, transforming into a human form after cultivation was a common characteristic of almost all clans. However, the human clan was a little special because they were born this way. Naturally, the clans would not admit that they had transformed into the human form. They all called it the Tao physique, which was closer to the physique of the Great Way. This was definitely not the physique of the human clan. Absolutely not. However, although the appearance was similar, the aura of the Sea Clan and the human clan were easy to distinguish and would not be confused. With Yishiwen's current strength, it was not a problem to change his aura. Although he was a little disgusted, he still decided to settle down here. After a short rest, he continued to the next location. After entering the city, he realized that the city was crowded with people. It was more prosperous than it looked from the outside. However, this prosperity only belonged to the sea clans. There was not a single human clan. "Brother, you must have just arrived at our Sky Thunder Sea region." As soon as Yishuin entered the city, a man with a cheeky smile immediately came forward and cupped his hands. "Yes." Yishuin nodded his head casually. He glanced around and did not seem to care about this man. "Why don't I be your guide? I guarantee that you will be satisfied. Some of the resource points near Sky Thunder City, some places where blood fiends appear, and all kinds of rumors will be available." The man squinted his eyes and said with a smile, "Our fee is very cheap. Only 5,000 blood stones will be enough. There's no need for that." Yishuin shook his head. He just wanted to stop here for a while. He had no intention of staying for a long time. These things were useless to him. "Then you can buy a copy of our information booklet. All kinds of information are very complete. This is much cheaper. It only costs 3,000 blood stones." The man's face changed. He then took out another booklet and said, "Not interested." Yishuin took a step forward and was about to walk forward. "So, brother, you are not going to give us any face?" Seeing that Yishuin had no intention of stopping, the man's face immediately fell and said coldly, "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.